There, I had to click the button. I had to click the button to go live. Hello. Hi, Linda. How you doing? Today's topic, I'm just sitting over here today because I'm feeling lazy today. I am feeling very lazy today, so I can be lazy today. I just got to finish moving all this stuff back. I had to get up and get something at the last minute. Oh, that's not it. Is that it? That's good enough. That's good enough. All my junk in the background. I thought, okay, I've been meaning to come in and I got some happy mail. Do that. No, none of that. No, that's not it. That's it. That's it. Hi, Moira. I'm being slow. I'm being super slow right this minute. It's a little fuzzy. The camera's still a little fuzzy. I had it fixed. And now I don't. That seems okay though. I'm gonna be off on the side while we look at stuff. I got some happy mail, so I thought I always just go, hi, now let's talk about the thing, and I dive straight in, which is fine. Oh, that's not one. That's something else. I got some happy mail and I want to share. I've been meaning. I was thinking about going on a live. I was thinking about coming in for like a quick, like half-hour live or so, not even a half an hour, just to show off my happy mail. And then just the universe conspired against me. So I thought while we're giving people a chance to show up and stream in and whatever, I will show off my happy mail. This is from Nanny B. She even sent me a card, a really cute card. Yes, I have to show. You'll see. You'll understand. Okay. She says, hi, Peggy. I love the robust way you express your thoughts on YouTube. So with that in mind, I thought these pieces of fabric, she sent me some fabric, would tickle your fancy and hopefully bring you a smile. I enjoy watching you sew, especially the lives when I can catch them. Keep doing what you're doing. I love it. With warm regards. And I'm just going to say Nanny B. I don't know if she wants her real name said. Everybody has their own views on privacy. So we're gonna show off. I'm gonna be typing as I go. So I've still got the webcam over there. I've got this camera. I got the computer camera off because anybody who has an interest in live streaming, if you are using your laptop camera, hi Autumn Rose, Moira, Gail, Lynn, Victoria, anybody else who showed up. If you're streaming and you're streaming from your laptop camera, if you're typing at the same time, you hear a thunka 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 thunka, and I have the webcam. I didn't need to do that to you. Okay, so here's the first fabric. I'll bring it back here now. That's the first fabric, and there's like, I'm not sure where she got it because. Well, that's okay, Autumn Rose. Then I will read you what my fabric says. There's a reason why this happy mail. There's a reason why I wanted to do a quick. There's a reason. Oh my God, I'm going to start the same sentence over and over. I wanted to do a quick live, but I couldn't because just one thing led to another. And I couldn't get to it. This says "kiss whoever the fuck you want," right on fabric, and it's awesome, and it's covered in little rainbows. Okay, that's the first one. This is the next one. Yeah, this camera doesn't like to focus. I really need to sort that out. Yeah, see? Yeah. So here is the second one. Oh, it's upside down. Let's just get a little closer. Fuck it. Fuck you. Fuck everyone. Fuck this. Fuck that. Fuck them. That's what it says right on the fabric. That's the second one. She sent me 4. I have no idea where she got these. I even ironed this for you guys. I took the time to iron it. I ironed it and got it all set up. Yesterday we had alarm. I was gonna do something, but yeah, apparently I was gonna do something, and then just those little tiny moments of life. Apparently I have an attitude. Who fucking knew? And I'm gonna bring it back here a little bit. This fabric is gorgeous. Nice. This one's nice and floral. Okay. I saved the best for last. This one, let's see if I can get, I'm just going to, and it's got a little saying. Let's see if I can get in here with this. Fuck off, then keep fucking off. Keep fucking off until you get to a gate with a sign saying you can't fuck off past here. Climb over the gate, dream the impossible dream, and keep fucking off forever. That one's my favorite. That one is my favorite. So the intense swearing portion of this live stream is now over. But yeah, this came from Nanny B. Now I'm gonna need to. I was going to the reason. Well, one of the reasons why I was gonna. Yeah, fuck you and your pretty little flowers. Exactly. One of the things I was gonna do was gonna. You ever get the was gonna? I was gonna do this. I was gonna do that, and then it just didn't work out. So I didn't do any of it. Oh well. Yeah, I need to deal with this camera. I just hate this camera. This camera apparently hates me. Maybe I will just switch cameras. The other cameras, the camera on my laptop is a better camera, but like I said, when I'm typing and moving and it gets all funky and shit. But anyway, we don't care. We don't care. So now I've got this amazing fabric now. And the weird thing, not weird, with the fun thing, it seems weird to me because I'm not used to getting it in these sizes, but these are not fat quarters. They are 20 inches by like 20. A fat quarter is 18 by 20 to 21 inches. These are like 20 inches by 20 to 29 inches. So I'm not sure where she got the fabric or how. I'm not sure. I have no idea where she got this. She's in Australia. She sent this to me from Australia. So I'm not sure if that's just a difference in how fabric is manufactured there or what, but I've got a bigger piece than expected. Now I need to figure out what to make with it. That's going to be the thing. What do I make with this? So I'm very happy, and I thought I'd show it off. And now we've had people, now everybody's had a chance to get in. Now we can move on to our actual topic. We are talking about Atlantis today. We are talking about Atlantis, and we're going to be talking about Edgar Cayce quite a bit because he had a lot to say about it. So, my God, I am hating this camera. Look, if you look behind my shoulder, the fabric that's off to the side looks fine. Looks totally fine. It's the that fabric on my little shelf back there. That looks fine. I am a fuzzy fucking mess. I wonder if it's got anything to. I can't tell if it's my glasses or not because as soon as I take my glasses off, the screen's all fuzzy to me. So it's like, actually, okay. Now that my glasses are off, a little bit of feedback, if you please. Did looking directly at me clear up and get less fuzzy? I can't do anything about it if it is my glasses, but at least then I have a better idea. Hi, Nanny B. I was just showing off your fabric. I meant to do a separate live to talk about it, but I never found the time. I will be. It's fuzzy even without the glasses. Yeah, because it's fuzzy to me now, so it's fine. Anyway. You ever do that? You start rubbing your eyes and you got to rub your whole face. It's like, okay. Wow, now it's even more fuzzy. Yeah, it was awesome. Happy Mail. Now we need. I'm gonna drop a picture into the community tab or something because now I need to figure out what to make with it. What am I gonna make with this, right? So that's the whole separate thing. Okay, what am I doing? I don't need that. Do I need that open? I don't think I need that one. I actually looked a few things. Yeah, it's like my favorite one is the fuck off and keep fucking off. Keep fucking off until you get to a gate with a sign saying you can't fuck off past here. Climb over the gate, dream the impossible dream, and keep fucking off forever. But now I need to know what to make with it. Because I don't very often make things for myself. I can incorporate it into, I can make a fucking quilt. There's not enough to do an entire quilt, which is absolutely fine. Because if that's all it is, it'll get really, really busy. So if I have if I have a relatively plain quilt with this just popping up randomly, that would look really cool. I can't really do any quilting right now though because I buggered my shoulder a little bit. Not in any way that matters, but then when you get to that point where you're putting the whole thing through the machine, yeah. Oh, I love it. I showed Lisa and she's like, "Oh my God," she thought it was the coolest thing too. Okay, what do I got to do? I got to do that. I got to do that. Now we're supposed to be talking about Atlantis. Why do I only have 3? That's not okay. That's not okay. I had like 5 or 6. Okay. So we're going to start talking about Atlantis. Now, let us see. Yes, that fabric is fucking amazing. Say it right, honey. Ah, my poor wife. So, no, I'm going to do that. About my next FAFO project? What is my next FAFO project? My next FAFO project... Double entendre. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's see if I can do this right. Let's see if I can do this right. You get up there. Give you guys something to look at since we can't look at me without being all fuzzy. No, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. Where'd it go? Oh my God, I do this every time. No, no. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Lisa wants a dice bag. What did I do? I don't know what happened here. This is supposed to be... no. I have no idea what happened here. I have no idea what I'm doing here. This is not going where I want it to. See, I do that. Oh, because that's for 2 cameras. That's for 2 cameras. Oh, screw it. I had this problem before, did I not? Did I not have this problem before? Nope, that's wrong. Oh my God. Oh my God. I had this. We have both going on, Gail. We have both going on. She's gonna pick some fabric that she wants, and then I'm gonna be making her a segmented dice bag. So it's gonna be a round bag. It's gonna be a round bag with a round insert that holds, like, I think it's either gonna be 6 or 8 decks. 6 or 8 sets of dice separately, as well as a center section, so that when you roll it all out, you can roll your dice into the center section. She'll know what she's doing. Okay, so let us look up. Okay, so the first person credited for discussing Atlantis or Atlantis or Atlantica was a legendary... They described it as an island in the ocean, in the Atlantic Ocean. This was first mentioned by Plato. Plato was quoting the Egyptians for having first mentioned Atlantis. He introduced Atlantis in Timaeus, written in 360 BC. For it is related. Here's one of the quotes. For it is related in our records how once upon a time your state stayed the course of a mighty host, fought off an attack, which, starting from a distant point in the Atlantic Ocean, was insolently advancing to attack the whole of Europe and Asia to boot. So this is a reference of what is supposed to be the later stages of Atlantis. And we'll get there. Plato mentioned it in 2 of his writings. In 500 BC, a Greek historian named... So he mentioned it in 360 BC, which is 500 BC came first. A Greek historian named Diodorus mentioned the existence of an advanced civilization that once existed on an island located far beyond the Atlantic Ocean. So Plato was the first to call it Atlantis, but Plato was not the first to mention an advanced society of some kind. Advanced in whatever way, we don't know, right? So, yeah, Diodorus mentioned him, also mentioning based on Egyptian records. So Plato left us the only written account. He described it a bit. And Diodorus just mentioned its existence. Plato said that, in Timaeus, Plato describes how Egyptian priests described Atlantis as an island larger than Asia Minor and Libya combined and situated just beyond the Pillars of Hercules. In the Critias, he supplied a history of their ideal commonwealth to the Atlanteans. Now, something that Plato did he would use a previous civilization or something that historical as because he was always all about the philosophy. Oh, hi Trisha. So he was always all about the philosophies of perfect society, perfect behavior, because he was a philosopher, right? So he would take he would invent or create civilizations or cities. Don't forget, in Plato's time, it was a lot of city states. So he would use that and say, oh, well, in this city state, this is how things were. This is how things were. This is how things were. So the idea of whether or not he was making it up completely or whether he was using real facts supplemented with his imagination to reinventing the wheel, basically. Don't know. The interesting thing, though, is that a lot of these guys, like Homer's Iliad, right? That was supposed to be a story. That was supposed to be made up. It wasn't supposed to be real. And yet, in the what was it, late 1800s, an archaeologist / explorer used the information in the Iliad and the Odyssey and went and actually found Troy and proved that it was Troy. So, from Plato. Coming from Plato, we don't know if Plato was we don't know what Plato was referring to. We don't know how real his representation was. We really don't, because we don't know if he was okay. How do you describe this? When we talk about ancient Greek civilization in our modern era, we apply details and thoughts and ideas that are important to us and overemphasize those things while possibly ignoring other things that were happening. Like when we talk about the elevated status of the Roman Empire, we just ignore the fact that like throughout most of Roman history, like 50% of the population was slaves. We don't discuss that. We talk about the greatness of Rome. We talk about the things that fascinate us, not the things that disgust us, right? So that's where we're sitting at right now. Can you hear that? One of my crows is out there yelling at me. Okay, so that's Plato. It gets really confusing really quick because you're looking at, it's widely believed that Plato's mention of Atlantis was pure mythology, pure storytelling, because he was a storyteller as well. That's how he that's how he got his ideas and theories and thoughts across, was by telling stories about his ideas and thoughts and whatnot, right? So we don't know, but we do know that most references that may or may not have existed from back then were attributed to the information coming from the Egyptians, and references to the Egyptians of the sea peoples. Let's see if I can get this one up quickly. Okay, let's see if this is... Yeah, so Plato asserted that the Egyptians described Atlantis as an island consisting mostly of mountains in the northern portions and along the shore, and encompassing a great plain and an oblong shape in the south, saying that it was about 555 kilometers or 345 miles wide, and about 200, so an oblong 200 miles wide, 500 miles, 345 miles long, 200 miles wide. So let me see where we at with this. So yeah, and he said that Atlantis existed about 9,000 years before his own time, which Plato's time was 2,000 years before ours. So we're talking 11,000 years ago, which coincides with the Younger Dryas, which was a geological event of rapid deglaciation. Okay, but anyway, so up until guys like Edgar Cayce came along and started saying, hey, I'm doing some, psychically, I'm doing this stuff, right? I'll be right back. I need to go get a roll of Kleenex. Climbing out from behind my little station there. Okay, I'm back. I am back. I am back. Okay, so where are we at right now? So that's where we're at right now. So according to Plato, Atlantis is real, and he was just using the example of Atlantis to build up his stories around it. According to, who was the other guy I just mentioned? According to the other guy, same, right? According to historians, no, it was just a flight of fancy. It meant nothing. It was something completely different. So where are we sitting at right now? So now we're sitting on, we've got this fantastical place. And the interesting thing is that we've also got Mu, Lemuria. We've got Mu and Lemuria were also two. This is just in passing, but Mu and Lemuria were also two island kingdoms of advanced races that were supposed to have existed in the Pacific around the same time, and that were also drowned under the sea around the same time. And it's really interesting. It's really interesting. The reason why I'm mentioning the Younger Dryas, it was the Younger Dryas is the last major. I'm just reading this straight from Google. It is the last because it'll because I stop and start and get off on a tangent. This keeps me on track. The Younger Dryas is the last major abrupt climate change event of the last deglaciation occurring 12,900 to 11,700 years ago. Isn't that a coincidence that around the same time that Plato said this island was swallowed by the sea, large portions of the northern hemisphere cooled and much of the southern hemisphere warmed during the event in a bipolar seesaw pattern. So what happened is that the Younger Dryas, the Younger Dryas, it was a deglaciation because it cooled, but then it rapidly warmed back up. And when that happened, we had abrupt sea level rise. And there are some scientists now that are saying that sea level rise may, like we're talking hundreds of feet, may have happened in as little as 2 to 3 years. Let me see if I can bring that up. Of course, I'm just going to bring up more. I love Wikipedia, but it's, yeah, air temperature went from, on average, whereas I'm not reading this chart very well. It basically the during the Younger Dryas, the average temperatures, there's the Bowling Alarot event, which dropped the temperatures, and the Younger Dryas that rose them back up to higher than what they'd been before. And this happened around the same time. So a rapid deglaciation event. Now we're talking like, look at, if you like, we say glacier, we say this, we say that. Like, I mean, I don't think I have it in me to imagine a sheet of ice the size of this entire region, a mile thick. And what that, drop an ice cube into a drink, drop a large ice cube into a relatively shallow drink, see what happens, right? So this matters in terms of, this matters when it comes to exploring the science. There's pseudoscience, there's scientific theory. Like pseudoscience becomes science once there's enough proof to back it up, right? The idea of a rapid deglaciation has been around for a long time now. And so the Younger Dryas proving that actually happened. Now the question is how intense, how severe was it? That matters. That matters because it actually matches the stories. It matches what Edgar Cayce had to say. So I just like to keep that in the back of my head, that there was actually a geological event that caused rapid warming and literally buried entire continents. They've proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. Let me see if I can bring this up. Come on. I need a map. I don't need that map. I don't know how to use Google Maps properly, so I just come over here. Let me just bring it in here. Okay. Ooh, and there it is. There it is. Beautiful to see. Okay, I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to come over to here. This matters. We haven't even got to Edgar Cayce yet, and this matters. Okay. This is the reason why the reason why I'm jumping straight to left field here is because I mentioned Mu and Lemuria in passing. They were also two fabled islands, advanced civilizations. Don't forget, these Atlantis, Mu, and Lemuria were all in like the equatorial zones. So even at the worst height of glaciation, they could be relatively ice-free areas. In terms of human development, human migration, and all things human, it makes sense that if there was any advanced human civilization that would have existed 10,000 years ago or earlier was going to have a heavy concentration in or near equatorial areas because we were under heavy glaciation at the time. So what we're looking at here is we are looking at Indonesia, the Greater Sunda Islands along the south. We are looking at Vietnam, Cambodia, Bangkok. That's all along the north. And the light blue that we're seeing surround it all, during the Younger Dryas, all of that light blue, most of it was above ground, above water. Most of it was above water and was buried during the Younger Dryas. And this is one of the locations that people, and if you can see this, you can see that we're going from the Asian Peninsula here, Malaysia, Indonesia. I forget what this peninsula is called. We're going from there all the way through and then connecting to Northern Australia. So at one point in our history, this was basically dry. This whole area here from Asia to Australia was dry land. That is one of the areas that they are saying is where either Mu or Lemuria was. And then you get over here to New Zealand, and they've proven this. I hope this is staying caught up with me. You get over here to New Zealand, and they've just recently discovered that this is a recent discovery. They've just recently discovered that New Zealand is the remnants of a lost continent that extended, and see the lighter areas. And don't forget, this isn't exact. This is not exact, but this is demonstrating where the shallow seas were. And you see going far south of New Zealand, all the way back up north again, that area there, a huge chunk of this was previously a continental landmass as well. Mu and Lemuria, this is really interesting stuff. So now we're going to go over to Pillars of Hercules. Yeah, New Zealand used to be a much larger landmass that was a continent in its own right. Translated crow talk. Yeah. Oh yeah. That, you know what it is? It's not feed me. Those little fucking crows. Sorry, I'm just responding to Nanny B. Those little fuckers are such choosing beggars. They are so well taken care of. It's not feed me. It's feed me something feed me one of my favorites. I basically cut up 1 or 2 hot dogs most days, take them out and give them to them. I also give them regular kibble, and every now and again, depending on what we're having, if there's some leftovers, I might chop that up. They just want something favorite. They want a favorite. There's no hot dogs in this. There's nothing I like. Give me what I want. And if they see me and I ignore them, when crows make this, I don't know how to do it, a ratcheting sound. When they make that ratcheting sound, that is how young crows beg their parents to give them food. If I am not out there quick enough when they're cawing at me, they will start ratcheting at me. Just, come on, we're begging. Come on, we're begging. Anyway, back to this. Okay. Now, the Younger Dryas and these shallow seas / previously these shallow areas that used to be land masses. This is why I believe that Atlantis once existed. I have no idea how accurate anything else is. This is why I believe Atlantis once existed. So now we're going to get in here. Now, if you see Gibraltar, yeah, Gibraltar is just just a little tiny bit off from the top left-hand corner of my little inset, right? Okay. So when that's the Pillars of Hercules. Now, just south of Gibraltar, right where the word Morocco is visible, that's a mountain range, the Atlas Mountains. So this has been acknowledged. Atlantis, it's basically, back in the day, we're talking Plato's day, the Atlas Mountains were widely believed to have been part of Atlantis at some point, or, pardon me, like Okay, let's just do something. Okay, here's Canada, right? This is Canada. Let's see if this is Canada. Okay, the whole country of Canada. When I think of Canada, my brain stops. See that line that says Canada? My brain stops below that line. Everything above that line is our three territories and all of our islands that go right basically up to the North Pole. Okay. This is really, really important. When you think of where you live, when you think of where you're from, especially if you're from someplace that's big enough to have a something like this going on, like if you are an American living in Texas, you don't necessarily automatically think of Alaska, Hawaii, or I think it's Puerto Rico that's an American territory now, right? You don't automatically think of those as being part of your country. You have to think about, like, if you live in Hawaii or you live in Alaska, that's different. But if you're living in the mainland, if you're living in the mainland USA, you have to think about other areas. And so this is important. When I think about where I come from, I think about the main part of Canada, where the vast majority of our population is. I think of that. I don't even think of northern BC, northern Alberta. I don't even think about the northern areas very much because they're so vastly underpopulated. We just don't talk about it. This is important. This is really important. So basically, Plato's description says that Atlantis was this. Well, if I say, oh, Canada, if I'm talking about Canada, oh yeah, in Vancouver, which is the closest big city to where I am, right? I'm part of the greater GVA, Greater Vancouver area. I had to think about that. Okay. Keep this in mind because we always do that. When we talk about where we're from, we talk about when we're talking about where we're from, we're talking about what the most important area is from. If you are not a Canadian and you're talking about Canada, you are probably going to mostly refer to Ottawa because it's our capital and Toronto because it's one of our major cities. You don't think about everything else. This matters. This matters. This matters. I'm going on. No, Alaska is the 50th or 49th American state. Alaska and Hawaii. Yeah, see, but this is important. This matters. Oh, you didn't miss much, boy. I'm just talking about, for me, I'm talking about where my belief in the evidence that something existed. So when we're zooming in here, according to Plato, when you go past the Pillars of Hercules, which is the rocks of Gibraltar that form the opening into the Mediterranean Ocean. There's the Mediterranean Ocean right there, right? Going out into here. Well, according to Plato, Atlantis was a large. You know what I need to do? I need to get a. I need to do something so I can do a pointer or something. According to Plato, Atlantis was a large island just off of the rocks, just off of the Pillars of Hercules, Gibraltar. So so the Younger Dryas event is a massive deglaciation event that made the sea level rise by hundreds and hundreds of feet. Now, something else that happens, if you pour enough water on something, you'll crush it down. Wave action, storm action, all sorts of things are happening, right? So when you look here, you've got Santa Cruz and Tenerife down here at the bottom. You've got Funchal here, but look at all of the lighter colors are raised areas, including a large one here, right in the middle of the North Atlantic. Now that's the North Atlantic Ridge going down. That's the thing that looks like a line going down the middle of the map there. That's the North Atlantic Ridge. But when you're looking at the map, you can see that area, the lighter it is, the more shallow it is. That's a shallow area. Now the ridges, because the Atlantic seafloor is separating, might go into deep trenches. And of course you get in closer. Well, look at that. Santa Cruz, we've got Villas, Madalena, Horta. So now imagine, see that? Look at that. Now, what did he say? He said mountainous. Well, there's a hilly area going through there. I'm pointing, expecting you guys to see what I'm pointing at, right? But if you take all of those areas and connect them and then take all of the shallow areas around that and connect them, you've got a pretty large island out in the middle of the Atlantic. And depending on, as we know, okay, how did mountains create? Mountains are created, two plates come together, push things up. Those plates can go and start separating again. So take a look down the center, and you've got this very long, shallower area in the middle of what should be the deepest part of the ocean. That's weird. So then you take that little triangle area and you connect in all of those other islands, and take away 800 to 900 feet of water depth. And what do you have? You probably have several very large islands. So back to my babbling about how you think about certain countries and you don't think about the outlying areas. So if you're talking about Atlantis, you're not going to talk about all the little teeny tiny islands that make up the territory. You're going to talk about the main islands. Okay. So looking here, you go straight out from the island. You go straight out from Gibraltar, and you've got all this shallow. You've got right there a big area of shallow, a big shallow area. You've got another one down here, another one down here. You've got a reason. You've got a reason to say, have they explored this area to see if anything is there? Unfortunately, when you've got tidal currents, just basic tidal action, underwater currents, and 10,000 years, there's nothing to be found. And somebody made a comparison once, and they said that you take a regular map now, right? And when you look at turn off the lights, send everybody off to planet B or whatever, come back in like 1,000 years, what is still going to exist and what can you actually find? Because when you're not doing anything to maintain, it's just jungle takes it over, life takes it over, things take it over. What is still going to exist, and what would it take to find it? Like if you come back, if you were to leave Earth alone for 1,000 years and then come back and land your happy ass in the middle of the Sahara Desert, what are you going to find? You're not going to find anything. It would literally be a needle in a massive haystack. So, is there something to be found? I think there is. Do they even know where to look for it? Probably not. Will they recognize it if they see it? Unlikely. Because then we're going to get into, because then we get over here. Okay, so we've got reasons to think. There is a sea level map. Let's see if I can find it. See if I can find it. Don't use it now. Is that it? It's a sea level rise viewer. Let's see. Come on. Let's see if I can find it. No, I don't want that one. Noise. Something's making noise. Nope, it's not doing it right. Close that. Okay, there is a sea level viewer. There are several sea level viewers. And if you take, and some of them will let you reverse. And it doesn't take much of a reverse for the Gulf of Mexico to fill in. It doesn't take much of a reverse to like almost triple how much land we've got, right? But yeah, so this is where I'm sitting at right now. Finding out the discovery that New Zealand is part of a larger continent, that is a recent discovery. Like I think that discovery was finally definitively shown in like the last 10 years. It's not old science. It's actually relatively new. But like I said, where this matters is we haven't even got to naming it yet. And as far as I'm concerned personally, because don't forget, a lot of this is like your personal opinion, personal thoughts, personal feels. As far as I'm concerned, we've got more than enough evidence for there to have been And if you go down past Senegal, there's another thing here. So we've got volcanic action can sink areas and or raise them up. We know this. We have proof of this. Plate tectonics can make areas go down or make them go up. We have proof of this. So we're looking at a landmass now. According to Edgar Cayce, Atlantis was a landmass that existed for like 100,000 years, over 100,000 years, or 100,000 years ago is when the Atlanteans first settled the area, or whatever. And again, you look up Edgar Cayce. If you look up Edgar Cayce directly, and all you get is buy his book, buy the book, buy the book, buy the book, buy the book. You don't. I took a little work last night to get a few links, and then I managed to end up not saving one of them properly. But anyway, so, and we also know that at a certain point that England and the UK, look at this shallow sea here. We know that at a certain point, all of this was part of a bigger landmass too. We know this. Okay. So was there up until about 11 or 12,000 years ago the possibility of a large landmass just off of Gibraltar that had a population of that had an advanced society living on it? Well, yeah, it makes sense. It makes absolute sense that during the time when all of Europe was covered in a mile of, Europe, Canada, during the time all that shit was covered in a mile of ice, all that ocean, all that water is locked up, sea levels are lower, this entire area, this big, huge chunks of this area, even though we've got deeper ocean on either side, it is absolutely reasonable to say that there were big, huge chunks of area in the North Atlantic that were above water and were thriving ecosystems. We can just stop right there. So the idea that modern rational science is telling us that it's not possible, it's like, why are you lying to us? Honestly. It's like, look, Iceland exists right along the ridge, right along the mid-Atlantic ridge. This clearly is okay. You come out this far and you see, oh, well, look at that. The lighter blue is higher elevation. Oh, well, blah, blah, blah. That's all underwater. It's like, actually, no, it isn't. These are the tops, and these are mountaintops. So what did Plato say again? That it was these are all mountaintops, that Atlantis was a mountainous island with some open savannas. But yeah, so you take all of those mountaintops, connect them together with that ridge with that ridge of mountainy area that swings back down onto the southwest, and you've got a really good candidate for that to be the main island of Atlantis, and everything else being their secondary territories. You come out the Strait of Gibraltar, you're going to run right into. If there was an advanced civilization living here, then yeah, you come right out of the Strait of Gibraltar and you're going to run right into Atlantis, and that makes logical sense. And it's in the Atlantic. So was Plato exaggerating about? So was there a landmass? Yes. Was Plato exaggerating who or what they were? Possibly, but that doesn't mean they didn't exist. That's my belief. Oh, you can see my arrow. Maybe if I move it around a little slower. So yeah, so you're coming out from Gibraltar. Look at this. You're going right into here. And you come in. Okay, that's all underwater. And is that going to be? Nope. See, when you switch over the terrain maps, you don't see underwater the same way. But yeah, this is above all of this. Look at that. And what's really interesting is like 12,000 years ago, the coast coming off of Portugal would have been further out anyway. So you would have been coming out into the ocean from about here, from somewhere around here. Everything else would have been above water, but you still have this deep channel between two mountains. So it's there. Now there's a really cool, I'm going to show you guys something really cool, because don't forget what I said is that plate tectonics, volcanic. Our topography, the shape of the land, it changes constantly. Sometimes abruptly, sometimes not so abruptly. Volcanic action. So we are going to go. I can probably find this just by zooming in. I wonder if I can turn all that off. There it is. This is called the Reichat structure, the Eye of the Sahara. And Edgar Cayce described Atlantis, and Atlantis has been consistently described as the city of Atlantis. Don't forget just like you have the state of New York and then the city of New York, New York, right? So this Atlantis has been consistently described as a port city, which 10,000 years ago, it's entirely possible that this whole area was the coastline. Has described as a ringed city with a series of moats leading to a series of moats, high ground, with a series of moats around it. And nobody has been able to figure out, the Reichat structure, and nobody has been able to figure out how this has been naturally formed, like they want you to believe. I mean, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. So this, and there's an entire Atlantis video. Has anybody seen the Y Files? He did an entire talk, and I've seen more than one. So this structure, there is evidence that this structure was a coastal city at one point until essentially all the wind, as the Sahara Desert forms, all the wind is 10, 20,000 years of the wind pushing stuff into the, you build more land by pushing sand and everything into the water. So there is evidence that this was connected by a waterway to the ocean at some point, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. And there are people that are convinced that this is Atlantis, that this is one of the cities of Atlantis. Because, what's that one? Oh, that's just a coincidence. Because Edgar Cayce was pretty clear that Atlantis was in this area here. Basically, Edgar Cayce basically said that Atlantis was a large kingdom that basically stretched, and we've got the evidence of land here from here all the way across to here. So it went all the way across. But he also said that they had settlements and that they had spread out. Just like if you go into Egypt, you'll see that there's pyramids all over the area, right? So this may not have been the capital of Atlantis itself, but it's entirely possible, based on the descriptions of what a typical Atlantean city looked like, that this could at the very least have been an ancient city. And there's also, let's see if I can find it. I probably can't find this one because there's too much. That one's easy to find because there's not enough stuff in the way. But there's also, if you go up the Spanish coast, I would have to look it up. There is a second area, either on the coast or just off the coast, that is similar. It's not the same. It's the same but different. It has similarities. No, I'm not going to be able to find it just by a quick going up there. Anyway, so that's where we are right now. So as far as I am concerned, there is more than enough evidence that this whole area here, 10,000 years ago, large portions of it were above water. That this whole section down here, you've got, because look at this, you go into here and you can see the wave action of where the winds are pushing the soil from the desert. So it's entirely likely that this whole area was a series of islands that have just been, you take an island here, an island here, an island here, and then just start putting in dirt, and then it's going to eventually build up and push its way out. So that's its own thing too. So now we're looking way over here. Look how shallow that is. Look how shallow this is. That's the Bahamas. The Bahamas is so shallow that it's got its own set of colors. Turks and Caicos. Now, according to Edgar Cayce, this was also the Bahamas. This whole area here, like the entire Caribbean, according to Edgar Cayce, basically the entire Caribbean was part of Atlantis. Was part of Atlantis and connected to the larger island chain that went across the center. Now, what he had to say. Yeah, see, here's some more. There's Bermuda. There's more areas there's more underwater mountains. So if we have a flooding event, and if you get enough water on something, it'll act as and if you put enough water on something, it will push it down. So you have this major flooding event that just took everything out. Now, according to Edgar Cayce, I don't think I'll be able to find anything, but let's see. Let's try one last time. So according to Edgar Cayce, where's Bimini? Bimini in the Bahamas. Okay, why is it not taking me to Bimini? Who knows of Bimini? I am so not. I thought Bimini was in the Bahamas, and this is the Bahamas. Where is Bimini? Okay, there we go. There we go. This is what I've been looking for. I should have just went straight to freaking Google. Okay, so. Oh, so Bimini is an entire island. That's why I thought Bimini was a city. That's my bad. It's been so long. So the Bimini Road is out here. There it is. Look at that. There's the Bimini Road. Okay. This is surprisingly straight, but that's okay. So this is what was spotted. This is what the tourists, this is what the tourists come out to see, is this area here. It's two parallel lines that meet at what appears to possibly be, like the assumption among a lot of people is that it's possibly a harbor. Then you get over here and you have other structures that are, they're not, okay, there's tons of coral out here. So you're not necessarily going to get a lot in the way of straight lines. But there are, yeah, I'm not going to find anything super obvious. Because also, like, okay, that's a perfectly straight line here, right? But all that is the satellite photos. You can tell because it's just different shades of blue, right? But at one point in time, now see, this is just the sandy bottom due to wave action. And then right here, you got more of something strangely suspicious, more of something strangely suspicious. The thing is that currents are one thing, but then when you get into areas like this, people start to wonder, right? And it's coming from this is strangely straight, going straight into the water, continuing onwards. Nobody knows. Nobody knows except for the Bimini Wall itself, which is, come on, I've been clicking around so much. Nobody knows for sure about anything except for the Bimini Wall itself. There's another section here that is strangely straight. And some of it can be a coincidence, some of it cannot be a coincidence, and nobody's taking it seriously, which is the thing. There was somebody somewhere did a mapping project looking for this stuff. That's what you do. You just go, okay, there we go. Back to the road again. Back to the road again, which is actually over here. There might be something else right in there. Once you get close enough, that's all you see. Okay. Anyway, I'm fixated on the road because I just think the road is fascinating. I really do. The Bimini Road was mentioned way before its discovery. He predicted that Atlantis would rise again and that that it would first start to reappear in Bimini. He said that in the 30s, like 1935, and Bimini, he said it would be discovered. He said the first evidence of Atlantis would start to rise in Bimini in 1968 or 69, and the Bimini Road was discovered in 1968. He died in 1945. The Bimini Road was discovered 24 years after his death. This is one of the events that brought Edgar Cayce did like thousands upon thousands upon thousands of readings, right? Like let me see if basically a total of 14,306 readings are available at the ARE. That's the Association for Research and Enlightenment that was founded in his name after his death. I'm not sure if the association formally existed before that or not. So yeah, 14,306 readings, and that's only what they saved. We don't know if he was doing anything before or after that. So he starts talking. So basically, he's doing reading. He's basically doing health readings. Hey, my kid is sick. What's wrong? What do I do? Hey, my kid, my father's sick. What's wrong? What do I do? This is how he got famous in the area for going into trance, doing a seance, looking at the person. Sorry for the belch, but you know. And then in the course of some of these trances, he would start talking about other things. And that caught the attention of the people that were, because he would go under with the help of a hypnotist, and he never remembered his reading. So somebody had to act as a secretary to ask him the questions and take it all down. They hired a stenographer, somebody who could do shorthand. So we don't know how many readings he was doing before he decided to start keeping count. We don't know how many readings that he did. Like, okay, like, if I look up, we were joking about this just the other day. If I look up my stats on Etsy, I can say I made this many products to put in my shop, but that doesn't count the stuff I've made for friends or family or for the wife, who is an entire project all on her own, right? We don't know how many he actually did in his lifetime. 14,000 though, for sure. 14,000 for sure that he recorded. Anyway. Basically, he made it very clear. He made it very clear that Atlantis sunk. Okay. Edgar Cayce's history of Atlantis. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, he made over 700 references during various readings. Okay, here we go. Historic mysteries. This is a link that I saved for earlier, so I'll just start reading. Edgar Cayce is considered one of the most prolific prophets in modern history, often compared to Nostradamus, which we already touched on that last week. He was actually far more prolific than Nostradamus with his 14,000 plus readings. He is also more accurate. Now, don't forget, Nostradamus is fascinating, but every single reading that Nostradamus gave, because Nostradamus was under threat of the Inquisition, and also various other religious trials and tribulations, where basically being accused of being a heretic in Nostradamus's time was a one-way ticket to a very grisly death. So he put almost all of his stuff into quatrains, in code, in rhyme, because he knew that if he was ever because he was a pyromancer. Actually, a lot of people think that he looked into a brazier of fire, by the way, for Nostradamus. I think he did do water. I think he did do water and mirror, but I think mostly it was water. He may have fiddled with that, but it was mostly fire. Okay, so Nostradamus was in riddle, in code, in all this stuff, and he was very, very, very careful to not be too specific about certain things, or it was going to get him executed. So Nostradamus, we have no idea. A lot of Nostradamus's predictions you can only recognize them after the fact, because he was so careful with what he had to say. So Cayce did not have to be as careful. He could say, giving seances and hypnotism and stuff like that were actually fairly popular. I was actually surprised because I thought it was opposite, but it was actually fairly popular in his time. So if people didn't believe him, if people didn't believe him, they just say he's a quack and move on. And like I said, Nostradamus, if you didn't believe it, if you had a problem with him, you could get him executed. So there was a different thing. Anyway, so he mostly gave psychic readings for people that were in great difficulty or suffering. So he mostly gave health diagnoses, right? He never asked for money and never took advantage of them. However, besides offering readings to people, he also prophesies about world events past and future. Now, my memory, sketchy though it is, is that he would be doing a reading on somebody, and then he would say, oh, he did this back in Atlantis. Oh, he did this during his Egyptian period. He would make references because, according to Edgar Cayce, he was going to the Book of Life and looking it up. Well, if I had to look up something by flipping through somebody's diary, it's like, oh, they graduated early. Oh, this. And this is kind of what he was doing. This is the best equivalent that I can think of that makes logical sense. He started mentioning these things that caught people's attention. They started asking more and more questions. They started doing some work just strictly on asking about those things. Okay. He prophesied about world events, past and future. One of these events was the lost city of Atlantis. Okay. So let's see what this says, and let's see how good my memory is. So according to what I remember reading about this, he talked about how Atlantis, like about 120 to 100,000 years ago, was a single landmass. And then the people living on that landmass they fucked up, and due to some accident or whatever, caused a geological catastrophe that caused Atlantis to basically break up into three main islands, and then all the other islands. And then further natural disasters started basically fucking that up until 10 to 12,000 years ago, the final calamity sunk it below the waves in a single day and night. But when you say something sunk below the waves, you're not necessarily specifying whether that sunk or the waves rose, right? Which is where this whole Younger Dryas observation comes in. The predictions and visions were about its discovery, history, and destruction. He said that a new land would appear in 1968 or 69 off the coast of North America, the so-called Rising at Atlantis. And it was during that time that the Bimini Road was discovered in Atlantis. So, yeah, off the east coast of North America. So he wasn't as specific as I thought he was. And that's where the Bimini Road first came up. And the Bimini Road is weird. Scientists are saying it's a natural formation, but they're also not willing. It's kind of like everything else. It's like, oh, I don't want to risk my professional reputation on this, so I'm just going to laugh it off. And a lot of scientists have now come forward. Let's go on a tangent. Back in the 50s, if you said UFOs, researchers would like, oh, fuck no, I'm not touching that, because every researcher who ever said that they thought UFOs were real was basically laughed out of their profession. It was not this, it was not that. Now that we've got the scientific advancement, and now that we've gotten over a little bit of our species-related ego, a lot of scientists now are saying, like, yeah, I wish I'd have been more outspoken then, because I was afraid of losing my reputation. I was afraid of what I was going to lose, so I just didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. That's what's happening now with the Bimini Road thing. Nobody wants to touch that. The scientists who have the scientists that are getting airtime are the ones that are saying this can't possibly be real. It's a natural phenomenon. We just don't understand it yet. And nobody else wants to risk their professional reputation to do it. I mean, and this makes a lot of sense. You take a lot of time, energy, and money to educate yourself into a particular field. And then if you fuck it up, you have to throw that all away, and you'll be lucky to get a job at McDonald's. And I've known people who have screwed up their professional careers, and that's where things end up. I worked with a guy at like a call center making $10 an hour back then, when $10 an hour was a lot of money for me, at least. And he's like, yeah, I'm a practicing lawyer in like California, like in Los Angeles. Like he's like, yeah, he told me how much he was making. I forget how much now. But if you're a lawyer, you have to pass a bar exam in whatever state or province you want to work in, right? And something. So he decides to move from Los Angeles because he had family in my area. He decides to move. He's like, yeah, this happened. So I think he had a health crisis or something. It's like, and I just realized that I needed to not live there anymore. It's like, oh, so you're just going to get back to work as a lawyer here? And it's like, nope, I lost it all. And now he's working for $10. This is a guy who was charging $100 an hour for his services, now working for 10. It happens. Something happens. You screw up your profession. Like he threw away. Oh, bye, Nanny B. Say hi to hubby. So this is important. Psych 101. I don't agree with it. Okay. I understand it. Okay. If I spent a couple of $100,000 getting myself educated into the scientific field to research this, and I stumbled across something absolutely mind-blowing, and by admitting that I think has some legitimacy, I would lose everything. I think I'd be scared to speak up too. It's hard. It's hard. You don't. Oh, I spent a couple of $100,000 to become a researcher, and if I say anything about this, I'm going to end up working at McDonald's if I'm lucky. They're not willing to do it. We've seen that in other types of research. We've seen that throughout all of human history. Nostradamus was afraid of the Inquisition with good reason, so he was not willing to be more forthcoming. I wouldn't risk it. Nostradamus was not willing to risk the Inquisition. And don't forget, back then during the Inquisition, if you were a heretic and you were the head of your household, then because the idea was that if you're the head of the household, obviously your thoughts, your ideas, your whatever control what the rest of the family thinks and feels and blah, 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 blah. Entire families would get swept up in this. It's like, oh, you're a heretic, so we have to arrest your wife and kids because you've contaminated them, right? And so Nostradamus he said that there's a code. Yeah, it takes courage, and sometimes and especially if you're risking somebody else's life too. But right now, it's like, yeah, you've got a nice wife, a nice house, a few kids. You've got everything's going well for you. And if you say that you think the Bimini Road is proof of Atlantis, that you're going to lose all of your research grants, you're going to lose your job, you're going to lose everything. Your wife is going to think you're nuts. Your kids are going to think you're nuts. Or you never know what these people are risking. I don't blame them. At least we live in a society now where armchair experts such as myself can talk about this till the cows come home and nobody gives a shit anymore. Because let's face it, if our social values, is that the right word? If our social values, if we had the internet when I was 20 and I was talking like this online at the age of 20 with the same, they don't want to replicate. Wait till you're in retirement and don't have kids. That's why Nostradamus published his centuries. That's what he called his books of predictions after his death. He did not want them published while he was alive because it was a risk to him and his family. So the thing is that you give me the internet when I was 20. When I was 20 years old, I consumed books like this like crazy. Oh, that's a whole different conversation. And yeah, Canada is on a bad road toward limited freedom of expression, but only in certain categories. So Canada is becoming way too socialist. But that's a whole different observation, because I have a feeling that we're not going to be having Trudeau around for much longer, because he's a drama teacher. He's a drama teacher. It's like Canada's. You know what though? I will say every country has its own shit going on right now, because we're just seeing political turmoil becoming the order of the day, right? But that's a whole separate thing. I try not to talk about politics because it's really easy to, I don't know, talk yourself in the corner is the right thing. But yeah, so you give me the social, because we do have a lot of like freedom of, we say whatever we want, right? So you give me the internet when I was 20 and just eating up all the Edgar Cayce comments and whatnot on a regular basis. You give me that when I was 20 and I start talking about stuff like that, good luck finding a job. Honestly, people, even then, there were some people that, like, there was plenty of people that were willing to talk about this sort of stuff, but they were very niche, very not careful, but you couldn't just spark up a conversation about this sort of stuff in polite society, because people would think you're nuts. People would, like, I don't know, like, I didn't really care, but I also did care, because you kind of had to, right? You didn't want to go to work and, oh, you're that wacko that believes this. You might as well pack your shit and leave. You're not going to have a good time, right? But it depends on who you are. It depends on where you are. It depends on who you're talking to, because at the same time that's happening, you've got people like Eric von Daniken making bank writing books. Carl Sagan was writing books about the possibility of UFOs back then, but they were careful and they had, I don't know if you want to call it protection, but they had their own stuff going on. But that's a whole segue. But it matters. It matters because now, 40 years on, we're left to sort out a lot of stuff based on information that is, I don't know how to describe this, but we're left to sort out a lot based on information that is only trickling out. Canada is criminalizing unacceptable expression. We are drawing international attention because of it. Oh, fuck yeah. Absolutely. Justin Trudeau was censured, yet again, by the ethics committee that oversees politicians because of, now I don't, okay, like there was an anti-vaxxer thing that happened, and I don't know much about it. I'm not going to pretend I do. A bunch of truckers went to Ottawa to protest, right? Justin Trudeau illegally invoked a War Measures Act in order to shut the whole thing down, put a bunch of them in jail, and seize all their funds, including seizing some of their houses. And it was just declared 100% illegal by the Supreme Court. These people, every single person who was affected by this, apparently there's either is or is going to be a big ass class action lawsuit, because their right to protest was that was all illegal. It was crazy. It was absolutely nuts. And Justin Trudeau, yeah, he's a problem. And not because of what, I don't give a shit what his politics are and what he believes. We all have that right. But the way that he is going about it, yeah, criminalizing unacceptable expression, and Justin Trudeau is personally deciding what's acceptable. So there's something to think about. Yeah, Canada, we're becoming more and more socialist by the fucking day. And it's funny because, yeah, it's gonna be funny, not funny, to see how this plays out at the next election. But good news is that when you don't have an asshat in power, things are pretty decent up here, I guess. I don't know, but no, I think those truckers had every right to do what they did. They had every right to do it the way that they did it, because every other group or organization that protested in a similar way, the government openly supported their right to do it. So while I don't necessarily agree with what they were protesting for, they did it legally, they did it by the book, and Justin Trudeau shut it down just to swing his dick around. But that's politics for you. That's how that works. And the interesting thing is that it does kind of sort of segue back into conversations like this, because when shit like this can happen, then people start to worry about what's going to happen to them personally. Good news is these kinds of topics are becoming more and more mainstream, and it is attracting the attention finally of people that are like, we really owe it to ourselves to actually take this seriously and investigate this shit. We really do. And that should have been the case a very long time ago. But so what's going on with this? Politicians have no real power. The next leader will just be the same or worse. I don't know. I honestly, I don't trust any politician as far as I can throw them anymore. I really don't. I don't. I'm so sick to death of politics. It's like fucking crazy shit. So we're going to get back on track, because I will get on a tangent. Like I said, like I have a very much live and let live. I've got my own thoughts, my own ideas, and my own opinions. And as long as I am free to express those, do no harm, cause no harm, right? But we're going to get back on track before I go on a tangent town. Oh my God. This is why I don't talk about politics. Okay. So yeah, after all these years, archaeologists and scientists are still debating these issues. Okay. So don't forget, he foretold this 25 years before his death. Edgar Cayce maintained that Atlantis was the first civilization that was technologically superior to even our own. I got to climb out. I should have brought back a, oh, there we go. I don't got to go anywhere. There we go. There's a really cool thing that happens. Yeah, back to Atlantis. There's a really cool thing that happens, and that is when you have the least little bit of sinus thing going on, the vibrations from talking just makes the nose start to get just a little bit itchy, whatever. But it's better than going. So that's a thing. Anyway, okay, so what we're doing here. Okay, so Edgar Cayce maintained that Atlantis was the first civilization that was technologically superior to even our own. He added that its last surviving islands have disappeared somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean some 10,000 years ago. He revealed that the size of Atlantis was equal to that of Eurasia. Now, Eurasia, well, we're still on the map, so let's do that. Yeah, you guys are just going to stare at maps for a while. Okay, so Eurasia is, it's my understanding, this is personal back from history class. Okay, so my understanding of Eurasia is, I can't make a, yes I can. Let's see. Let's do that. I'm not going to actually do the snip. If I use that. Okay, so it's my understanding that Eurasia starts, no, I don't want that one. My understanding that Eurasia basically starts here and kind of encompasses that. So that is, okay, fine. We'll just bring the snip over. Can you guys see the snip? No, you guys cannot see the snip. Let's go find the snip. I can't share. Can I share the snip? Nope, I cannot share the snip, but I can come on. The area that I previously put a box around, but it's my understanding, personal understanding, that Eurasia has never really been specifically, so it's Eastern Europe and Western Asia. So this area right in here where they kind of combine, and that is subject to debate as to how big that area is. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm just saying it in the most awkward. We'll get there, Trisha. Just trust me. So that area there it's subject to debate. It's a pretty extensive area. But if you look, let's get back to the bigger part of the map. Okay. Actually, yeah, let's get my snip back out. Oh, wait, you guys can't see the snip, can you? I don't think you guys can see the snip. I don't know if there's a way to highlight. Okay. So you're talking this area here, which may or may not be bigger or smaller. It's like everything else, right? Countries' borders shift and change. In Edgar Cayce's time, I have no idea how big this would be considered. But if you take a look at the area, if you take a look at this little circle that I'm making over here, it's about as big as this circle right here. So that sounds about accurate. So, according to Edgar Cayce, where's the other one? I has another bookmark. We're going to go over there. Where is it? Did I find it? Oh, okay. This is just something else with some hit and runs on Edgar Cayce. The reason why Edgar Cayce is important is because here's some predictions that he made. Here's predictions that Edgar Cayce made. This is a person. This is just a Reddit person, but they listed these things. Yeah, Edgar Cayce is considered to be the most accurate psychic in history. And these are things he predicted Hitler and the exact date of World War II. He predicted the exact date that America would enter World War II. He had predicted the exact date of the Great Depression. He would predict that blood would one day be used to diagnose diseases. And now, okay, so the World War II, because he died he died in 1945. So for him, World War II would have been very, very current. So if somebody wants to go, oh, it was a lucky guess because he was alive at that time reading the papers, that's fine. Okay. The exact date of the Great Depression, okay, he was alive. He was alive during the Great Depression. He predicted these things a few years before they happened. I made comment on the last video because his predictions where Germany was concerned were made at a time when Germany was seen as restructuring, rebuilding, and where Hitler was not. Hitler at that point in time was not seen as the bad guy, not by the general public. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have the ability to research, deep dive, nothing like that. The general public, the general newspapers were not telling the truth. Nobody knew the truth about what Hitler was doing until World War II was winding down. And yet Edgar Cayce predicted that Hitler was a problem and that he was going to start World War II. Okay. But that's neither here nor there. That's like 80 years later. Okay. He predicted things that would be found in the Dead Sea Scrolls before they were even translated. He had predicted that the United States would be a superpower. Up until 1945, the United States was not necessarily the United States was not considered a superpower. They did not have a very strong presence in World War I. They tried to avoid entering World War II until 1941, until the war had already been going on for World War II had already been going on for a couple of years. The idea of the United States being one of the most powerful countries in the world wasn't really a thing until after World War II. And he was already dead by the time he was dead. He died before the war ended. He predicted the exact year that laser technology would be perfected. He predicted JFK's assassination and claimed it would be the mafia. He wasn't vague at all. Now, don't forget, JFK, Edgar Cayce died in 1945. JFK was assassinated in 1964. He predicted JFK when JFK was still a very, very, he would have been like what? He was in the war, but he was still pretty young. He predicted the exact date the United Nations would be formed. He predicted the pole shifting, which was never even thought of until he said it, and NASA confirmed that they shifted the year that he gave. The pole shifting wasn't as severe as what he thought it was going to be, but then again, politically speaking, there was a lot of shifting. He was exact. He was never vague. When he was vague, there were times when he was somewhat vague in what he predicted, but he was very, very clear about it. He always said that Atlantis was between the Americas and Africa, but also that you can say some portions in between Europe and America. So that would be like, colonies and whatever, right? Yeah, he said the Algonquin tribes of Native Americans were from Atlantis. And that they are the only natives with different blood. Now, this is somebody doing a thing on Reddit, so I'm not sure what that reference is for. He gave locations basically after the sink of it. Basically, the final sinking of Atlantis, he said they knew it was coming. They had some time to prepare, and so they fled and reestablished elsewhere. And one of the areas they established was Egypt. Egypt and in Mesoamerica, where, of course, the Aztec, the Incas, and their funky little pyramids showed up. So he's done a ton of readings on Atlantis. Yeah. Okay. So that was what I want. I wanted to go through those things because I remember reading about those things myself, but I also knew that I wouldn't remember them off the top of my head when the time came. Hey, Michelle. Yes. Wall Street didn't predict the crash early enough. Wall Street did not predict the crash at all. Wall Street was like, everything's fine. And Cayce basically advised a few people that to pull out their money before the crash, and some did, some didn't. But the ones that believed in him went, oh, okay, I'm gonna get my money out of the stock market right now. And yeah. It's kind of funny. He would not give financial advice. So he was never going to tell anybody how to play the stock market, but he would give advice that you're going to be in trouble if you don't do this, which is apparently what he did. That's how I understand it. Yeah, you guys can't see the snip anyway, but yeah, so Eurasia kind of matches. If you make a circle in the middle of the Atlantic and make a circle kind of where approximately Eurasia is, you're going to find they're of a similar size. And like I said, going back just looking at Canada, which is where I happen to be from, look at all of this land mass. Okay, that's green. That the big one is Greenland. But look at all of this Canadian landmass that goes north, that if you ask a Canadian, they won't even bother to, they won't even go, oh, well, you know, all those islands, we don't think about that. The main seat of power, where our capitals and major cities are all along the Canada-US border. All of them. The rest of Canada, by comparison, is pretty barren, right? I think this here is Baffin Island, and I believe the most northern town in Canada is like in this area, either on that island itself or one of the neighboring islands, but like that's it, right? We don't count the stuff, we don't count the hinterlands, we don't count the suburbs, right? The more we don't count the rural areas. So yeah, that's where we're at on that. So this is what he said about Atlantis. Now this is yeah, he saw visions of the continent of the past, which had gone through three major divisions. The first two occurred around 15,600 BC, when the mainland divided into islands. The three main islands of Atlantis are Perseidia, Og, and Aryan, which I mentioned before. Now, basically, what he was saying was when Atlantis was one single landmass, or when the majority of Atlantis was a single landmass, that this is starting like around 100,000 years ago. And they developed an incredibly advanced technology. Now, I don't know if this is, yes, okay. He claimed that the Atlanteans were well-versed in technology that harnessed the power of the quantum world. So now we're talking lasers, we're talking crystals, we're talking sound. They used everything that is in a science fiction wet dream. It's like laser technology, specially crafted sound waves, lights, everything. They claim, you know, they had mastery over it all because they had 100,000 years to develop it, right? This included the use of crystals and sound waves for healing. I should read this first. I should read this first and then comment, because I'm commenting it and then it's just going there. Incan and Egyptian technology is really, really interesting because except for a few visual differences, they're virtually identical, really, when you come right down to it. And yet we are, oh, Michelle's hanging out while working again. Yeah, I'm just hanging out. I'm not working at all. I got some awesome fabric though. If you have time later, swing back to the beginning of the video. I got a little happy mail from Nanny B. And I thought I was going to do a separate little something and show it off, but I just didn't get time to. We had fire alarm testing yesterday, and Shayla's always a mess, so I basically had to spend the day hugging my dog. Day before that, just whatever, I forget what was going on, and it's like, yeah, so I meant to come on live and show it, but I've got the most amazing fabric. Swing back for about the first, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes at the beginning, and you'll see it. It's awesome. It's awesome fabric. It's got swear words on it. It's great. Okay, anyway, so where are we? So the interesting thing about Atlantis is that in all the over 700 different mentions of Atlantis, and I am thinking that I'm reading this wrong, because it's my understanding that they did several hundred. Yeah, she doesn't like my fire alarm. It's my understanding that there was like literally 200 or 300 specific. No, that can't be right either. I'm trying to reach back, because thing is that it's so difficult to find anything right now, because they've just. My problem with the fire alarm testing is that there's no, you know, I either have to get her out of the house for like 4 or 5 hours until they're done, or we just have to tough it out. We tough it out until they're done, and then we go for a nice long walk. I tough it out. I cuddle her. I talk to her, whatever. and then we go for a nice long walk, or in yesterday's case, a little car ride with Lisa. She came by, grabbed us, we went and got some quick drive-through, and then that resets her, and then she's done and she just sleeps for the day. Fortunately, she doesn't like it, and she is scared of it, but it's not. I've seen some dogs that are outright terrified, and I don't think, like I said, she's not fun. It's not fun for her, but she's okay. She's fine now. She doesn't give a shit today. Anyway, back on track. I'm allowed to have breaks to talk about other things. Okay, so basically, he's talking about the Atlanteans having had like almost 100,000 years to fully develop as a society, and don't forget, they're staying kind of, they're not really spreading out. And now when you're talking about the fact that come on, let me see if I can do this. Let me see if I can get this up. Wow, there we are. Okay. No, I don't want to see that one. I just want to see a picture. Yes, I'm doing that. Okay. Share this tab instead. Do. Can I do that? All right. Okay. This is what becomes really, really important. And we kind of forget to look at this. We forget to consider this at all. Okay. We don't even consider this at all when we are looking at something that, okay, he's saying this is 100,000. He's saying that Atlantis developed 100,000 years ago. And we automatically assume that 100,000 years ago, okay, remember what I talked about? If you look over here, you see Australia connected in through Indonesia, land bridges, all sorts of shit. That is where some people say Mu was located. But look at this map. See New Zealand down here on the side? We just see the island of New Zealand. Very, almost no different than what it looks like today. And yet we know that during the last ice age, that there was all that shallow sea area was a fucking continent, and New Zealand was in the middle of it. We know this now, but we didn't know this then. So all this stuff going down the Atlantic, absolutely no reason why it can't be a large landmass. Another large landmass here, the Patagonian ice sheet. Now, we have the Patagonian ice sheet that we say was on South America, but we're not giving any credit to whether or not portions of the, we have the Antarctic ice sheet, right? We've got no way to know how far out into the South Atlantic and Antarctic Ocean. We have no idea, no way to know how far north that ice sheet traveled. We have no way to know. We have no way to confirm that. So if we assume 100,000 years ago that because the Patagonian ice sheet was on South America, okay, why was it not connected, and why wasn't the ice all the way up to the island, up to the Indian Ocean? We have no idea, right? We know that it went here. So it would make sense. It would make sense that with all the glaciation happening everywhere else, if I were a relatively intelligent person with a reasonable access to technology, I would be thinking about putting my society on an island, on an area that is surrounded by liquid water, so that I'm less likely to be having a huge fucking problem. Because don't forget, okay, the Laurentian ice sheet is up here in the north, right? What kind of winters? What kind of wintertime weather did the rest of the continent experience? It had to have been fucking cold. You're gonna perk your civilization surrounded by warmer ocean currents, which means that you're gonna park your civilization. Maybe not even in this land bridge over here, in maybe not even in this land bridge in Indonesia, but maybe on something else that's a little further out. So there is an absolute logic as to how and why. Yeah, are they suggesting that Atlantis stretched from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean like an empire, and that all parts of the empire suffered the same fate? There are basically. Let me finish. You know what? Let me stop tangent towning, because that's what I do anyway. I'm good at it, but let's go back and finish reading some of this. No, that's not. That's more about the technology. So basically what Edgar Cayce had to say was that Atlantis was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean on its own continent, on its own raised, on a massive island, right? But he also was saying that he was also saying that they did settle other areas around it. But like, just think again, back to what I was saying about, think about where you live right now. And if you say my country, oh, I live blah, you're not referring to the entire area. You're referring to the more populated areas. If you say that you live in Seattle, you're not thinking of New York all the way across the continent. So I think what my understanding is, based on what I've read, so this is just my opinion, what my understanding is that the main, like the capital, this was a kingdom, so there were kings. So the capital where the king ruled from was on this island, just like the Roman Empire, right? All roads lead to Rome. Rome had settlements, they had colonies, they had subject nations, they had all of that shit going on, but the seat of power was in Rome, period. When you talked about Rome, you did not think about their colony in Spain. You did not think about their colony in Britannia. You did not think about their colonies throughout the Mediterranean or their influence in the area. I think that the main power of Atlantis, the main, where the leaders and rulers of Atlantis, this is where they were, and they had a wide reach throughout the region. And this is the way, this is the languaging and the way that Edgar Cayce described it. And he's not the only psychic. He is not the only psychic that talked about this is something that we forget, okay? Well, this one's interesting. Okay, this is Quora, so it's crowdsourced, but we'll see if it has anything to say. This is not even... Oh my God, no, one answer? Jane Roberts, who channeled an entity known as Seth Rudolph Steiner. Yeah, there's been others, but I'm not getting any information that's making sense to me. And of course, I don't have the time to deep dive into that part of it. So we kind of have to. We're kind of going to have to. See, I think what happened. But okay. Let's go back. Let's. Okay, I'm going to go back to. Why would every outpost of the Atlantean Empire also drown without a trace? Two things. Okay. Now, Edgar Cayce says. Edgar Cayce, I'll go. I gotta get going. I gotta get back and forth. I don't have to get on track. You guys know me. You guys know better. Okay, so Edgar Cayce basically was like, when Rome fell. Think about the Roman Empire. They are a really good comparative. Rome had a whole lot of power, a whole lot of this and a whole lot of that. When Rome fell, everything else around it didn't fall immediately, but it did. It just went away. They stopped getting support. They stopped getting support in terms of, like, their soldiers stopped. Any soldiers or administrators or whatever in these areas stopped getting paid. The locals, oh, hey, well, you've got no, Rome's burning. You've got no backup. We're going to take you down. Stuff like this. So imagine right now if Rome didn't fall without a trace, but honestly, if we weren't working so hard to preserve it and gave it 10,000 more years, would there be any traces? What would still exist of Rome if we stopped preserving Rome and just let nature take it back? So there's that. Now, according to Edgar Cayce, uh, uh, Atlantis had 3 separate major cataclysmic incidents. After the first one, they rebuilt. After the second one, they rebuilt. The third one brought the third one basically brought the actual Atlantis itself under the water, right? Yeah, but you know what? So many books like that are based. So many books about Atlantis, like that. So many fiction books about Atlantis are based on the nonfiction information that we have coming from people like Edgar Cayce. That yeah, yeah, like nature has taken back a lot of Peru and those places. Like, yeah, we're just finding they recently found a pyramid in Peru, an entire fucking complex. Angkor Wat in Thailand is another example, completely taken over by jungle. All these buildings, all this stuff, it's just been sitting there for years and years and years and years and years, for thousands of years, until they literally stumbled across it. They stumbled across it and found a massive, like 50-acre complex, but because it was in the middle of the jungle, nobody was looking for it. They found that by when they flew over doing like sonar or lidar or something, and that's how they found some massive complexes in like the middle of the jungle in Peru and places like that. So Rome, we basically preserved. Yeah, they're finding these temples by accident. So the thing is that if we were doing nothing to preserve this stuff, then we're not going to find it. But there's something else. There's a little bit of a gotcha moment coming. So basically, we have an entire island that sinks below the waves. What little bit of evidence we still have, people are like, that can't be it. And we've got 10,000 years of silt and sediment and mud and whatever, just build up along the bottom. We get that all the time, right? Things get buried. Like they had to literally dig when they first discovered the pyramids. All that was sticking out was the Sphinx's head and part of one pyramid. They didn't know the rest of it was there until they dug down to it. So we've got that. We've got that for a starter. The main political and economic center of Atlantis society, literally under the ocean. Everything that's left has no longer got its local support, has no longer got anything. So they're going to crumble and fall to ruin. And we've seen ancient civilizations, that happens all the time. That did happen with the Romans. For every one thing that we did save of the Romans, there's other things that are just lost forever. Like they're still rediscovering little bits of Roman road and all kinds of stuff, thousands of years later, and that's only 2,000 years. Yeah, the Sphinx itself is fully uncovered, but the tunnel systems and everything that was under it, yeah, but they don't know much about that because the Egyptian government won't let anybody in. But according to Edgar Cayce, and this is all about time frames, okay? According to Edgar Cayce, when Atlantis sunk, those who had the opportunity to leave, and he doesn't really say how many people were able to leave, they went in every direction. And he reports that in one of his past life, he was part of a group that basically helped create Egypt, that helped found Egypt and helped that. And he said that is why that's why North and South America have, like, we've got pyramids in Mexico, we've got pyramids in South America, we've got pyramids in Egypt, now we've got possible proof of pyramids in China and Mongolia. Basically, the survivors did rebuild. Oh, cool. I'm glad you're liking it, Autumn. So the survivors did rebuild. They rebuilt elsewhere, but they had to rebuild from scratch. So they're starting off. And there is evidence. There is evidence that science would love nothing more than to ignore. There is basically proof that the most advanced of Egyptian monument building, the most advanced stuff happened earliest. And then from there, it was like a gradual decline. And this is something that has been talked about forever and ever and ever. How did that happen? Well, the survivors of Atlantis, some of the survivors made their way into Egypt and started rebuilding their society there. And that's what became Egypt. Others went into North America. Others went into South America. Others went wherever else. And this is how the technology, same thing. So this is something that Edgar Cayce talks about, and this becomes really, really important because he has extensive, pardon me, guys, he has made extensive references in his readings to being a person named Ra-Ta. Isn't it the name that I dug up? Basically, an Egyptian priest, a person in the shush, 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 shush. It's okay, just a noise. Come here. Come here. Now you're all done. Come here. Basically made a reference to being part of the Egyptian priest class, whose job it was to reestablish a new Atlantis. So they didn't drown without a trace, but this happened so long ago. Don't forget, he's saying now, according to, and this is a weird thing. The Younger Dryas, really, like, nobody knew what that was. That's a very, very modern discovery. This Younger Dryas period of rapid deglaciation. That's new. That's a new discovery. So Edgar Cayce, what he is describing and the way he's describing it and the time frames that he gave time frames. We're not just guessing. He said about 15,000 years ago, this is what happened. This happened during the Younger Dryas. So for all we know, there was a short, like, we don't know. Nobody knows for sure how fast it happened. So if there was an abrupt thing and, oh my God, disaster, and then the survivors are going, oh my God, this event is happening. We're going to be underwater in a few years. They've got time to figure this out. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened. So let me see what we've got. Okay. And this is also, let me see this. Okay, let me see if I can find it. Arg. This one is going to be very difficult. This is something that will be near and dear to many of you. I'll get to it in a minute. I'll try to get to it. So basically he's saying, okay, the Atlanteans were well-versed in technology and harnessed the power of the quantum world. This included the use of crystals and sound waves for healing. Elevators and connecting tunnels operated with compressed air and steam, and they used quartz crystal science to mine gold, copper, and silver from the earth. So that's like tuning crystals, right? They were adept at the use of silicon chips at levels unrivaled in the modern world. The crystal skull, for example, are we going to see one or not? Okay, I got to... Is this one? Okay, I'll show you one just to show it, but I'm not sure if this is actually one or not. The crystal skull, for example, was cut with such infinite precision that no known modern tool could have replicated the job. They were familiar with the amplification power of crystals in laser technology and memory chips. Also, they made extensive use of mass mental telepathy, psychokinesis, and astral projection into fourth-dimensional consciousnesses. Edgar Cayce said that the people of Atlantis had constructed giant laser-like crystals for power plants, and that these were responsible for the second destruction of the land. He blamed the final destruction and the disintegration of their culture on greed and lust. So, infighting, things stop getting easy and they start going after each other. He said that there were two rival parties fought for control of the Atlanteans in its final days. Now, this is an interesting thing because this comes up. This has come up in other psychics like Nostradamus even have mentioned it. So there were two factions that were formed. One was the Children of the Law of One, and they wanted to return to spiritual stewardship of the land based on natural laws, which was apparently that's how they developed their technology the way that they did. The other group, the sons of Belial, wanted to exploit natural resources for material gain. Now, doesn't this sound familiar, like God and the devil having a little showdown, right? Now, there are people that say that the Bible, the story of Satan being cast out from heaven, is basically a retelling of the story of the breakup of Atlantis once it reached its political issues. The chief focus of their conflict was a third class of dull, half-awake subhumans that the sons of Belial used for slave labor. This one, I don't remember seeing any reference for this. I know that the one faction, according to Cayce's readings, one faction definitely wanted to basically enslave the rest of humankind, but this half-awake subhumans makes no sense. The children of the law of one wanted to enlighten these sub-beings by raising their consciousness. However, the sons of Belial wanted to keep them in ignorance and exploit them for their own gain. So, Cayce revealed that before the legendary land disappeared under the waves, there was an exodus of many Atlanteans to ancient Egypt. He attributed the biblical great flood of Noah to be the result of the sinking of the last huge remnants of Atlantis. He also revealed that many Atlanteans that managed to escape had hoped to preserve a record of their civilization. And this is where we start getting to the Hall of Records and stuff like that we talked about. So, basically, what's going on? Okay, I don't know if this is one of the ones, but one of the things that they routinely were coming across, especially in South America, were crystal skulls, and yet very, very high quality. And we have crystal skulls all over the place now, right? But the thing is that the crystal skulls that they were finding they were just finding them in temples, in houses, whatever. Like this crystal skulls that they were finding, they were just simply not able to make them with the known technology at the time. No, they've never figured out how they made them, because the known technology at the time they would not have been able to make. It would have taken literally years to make one, years, and just to do it right, not break it, not crack it, whatever. And yet they would find caches with dozens of them. And yeah, so that became its own thing. So according to Edgar Cayce, let me see where I'm going. Yeah. So I don't know, but we are really, really fascinated by crystal skulls even now. So even seeing a crystal skull, unless you see one in a museum, you are not going to know whether or not you're seeing. Unless you see a crystal skull in a museum to know that it was literally taken from an archaeological site, you are never, ever going to be sure that you're looking at a modern replica. You're not going to know what you're looking at. But this, I've seen photos of crystal skulls back from some of the science fiction type books that I would be reading when I was a kid. And yeah, there's absolutely no reason why they should exist. Nobody really understands nobody understands how they did it. And we have the exact same thing in Egyptian. Nobody, even now with all their theories, they have no idea how the pyramids were built, and they also have no idea why they were built. Because what they realize is that some of the one pyramid has a giant sarcophagus in it. The sarcophagus could only have been placed as the pyramid was being built. Because they're like, oh, this the sarcophagus in the king's chamber of the pyramid of Khufu, I think it is. Yeah. So according to Edgar Cayce, I keep saying Cayce or Casey. I don't know how you're actually supposed to pronounce his name. So basically, according to Edgar Cayce, Atlantis was very, very advanced, both technologically and spiritually. And after the first breakdown, the first and second, they were harnessing incredibly powerful energy, had a calamitous accident that caused the first breakup. And he doesn't give much more than that. But during Cayce's otherworldly journeys, he would often reveal the past lives of those who came to him for information concerning their health. He told a number of them that they had past lives in the legendary lost land of Atlantis. In fact, Cayce revealed that a vast number of souls who lived past lives in Atlantis had been incarnating to America for a long time now. Their purpose was to usher in a new era of enlightened human consciousness. In all, he referred to Atlantis no fewer than 700 times over a span of 20 years. This is where it gets really interesting, because the stuff that Cayce mentions that is physical, tangible, can be measured, it's all coming. He's like accurate. This is happening. Like he said, Atlantis will come. This is when it's going to happen. Look for it in this area. Boom, there it is. Everybody's going, that's not it. So did Atlantis exist? I think it did. I think that we had Atlantis, Lemuria, and Mu. I think are three major societies that existed. I think they existed all around the same time. I think because they were all wiped, they were all drowned. KC. Yeah, I thought, I keep looking and I keep fucking it up. Don't forget, I was reading about this guy for years and years and years before the internet. So this is how that's going to go. So the thing is that I think, just looking at this map, let's see if I can get my, come on. No, I want the other one. No, I want that one. I want you guys to get another look at where New Zealand was, because we're not showing during the last ice. When was that? Yeah, I just want to make sure the entire map was up and taking myself off. I just forgot to put myself back. Yeah, I didn't get lost. It's fine. I'm still here. Oh, wait. You stopped hearing me, didn't you? Ugh. Ugh. Okay. Now that I'm back, I just revealed the secrets of the universe, and now I fucked it up. Okay. So looking at this map, basically, Homo sapiens emerged between 200 and 300,000 years ago. They developed the capacity for language about 50,000 years ago, which makes no sense. I think I don't know how they can say we didn't have a capacity for language and still be Homo sapiens. Okay, so, but yeah, at the time of the Younger Dryas, we had all this happening here. 10,000 years ago. Wait. Let me see. That was 100,000 years ago. 100,000 years ago, we had these massive ice sheets everywhere. Okay. When an ice sheet moves in, it grinds everything to a pulp. When it comes back out again, it also grinds everything to a pulp. Okay. If we had a greater civilization than even Atlantis could have existed, and we would find no traces of it. The reason why we have traces of the dinosaurs is because we have a dinosaur layer, and then this much, hundreds and hundreds of feet of sediment over top of it, protecting that layer from the damage of glaciers. Okay. So saying that, so were there other civilizations? Yes. Were those, any other civilization would have been completely destroyed by the evidence would have been destroyed by the glaciers. Do I think that during the period of time, I don't know why the whole thing's not visible, but that's okay. Let's get back to the bottom part here. So the Antarctic ice sheet floats. There's no reason why that ice sheet couldn't have floated all the way up to be touching South America, South Africa, the south end of Africa, and the southern half of Australia. And depending on ocean currents, depending on how the ocean currents were moving at the time, some areas would have been left like this area. The area of Canada that I live now was not subject to glaciation during the last ice age because the warm currents coming through the area kept everything warm. No glacier. Great. Okay. So this whole idea that nothing could have existed is kind of silly. It really is. And the whole idea that there were no previous human societies is also kind of silly. According to Edgar Cayce, Atlantis was formed. Atlantis began around 100,000 years ago. We would have been under a glacier at the time. This photo is like what did the world look like 100,000 years ago? So yeah, the best place for a civilization to form is in the safer, not weather-affected areas in around islands. Anyway, yeah, Canada is subject to glaciation now, and the funny thing is that we are still in a glacial period. We're just enjoying a warm. We're enjoying a warm break in what is supposed to be a glacial period. That's why Greenland is still covered in ice. But I digress. Do I think that we had other? Do I think other civilizations, massive civilizations, existed before our own? I think we've had lots and lots and lots of different civilizations. We have proof of it now. We have all the proof in the world. We went from the Egyptians to the Greeks to the Romans, and before the Egyptians, there were the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Akkadians. Why are we not? But then we don't continue to look further back. Oh, they must have been the first. And this is just in Mesopotamia. Then we go over to India, where I know India, China, those areas where I know nothing about. I don't really know anything beyond certain limits because, of course, that's not, we would study what's most related to us. So that's not something I saw a lot of. But we had the Asian civilizations going back and back and back. We had Indian civilization. India can record their history back to almost 10,000 BC, because they've got so much evidence of it, because India, being equatorial, has always been warm. So yeah, we have got absolutely no reason. No, we have got no reason to believe that there was not an advanced civilization before us. And if you take that advanced civilization and give them a relatively peaceful existence for 50,000 years, you should have something further advanced than anything that we could possibly imagine now. That's just the default. Because we're sitting here, yeah, we're living in a very weird age. But here's the thing. We're living in an age where we're putting astronauts on the moon, and yet we still have uncontacted societies in some of our more remote jungle areas. We have every type of living situation. I don't know how to express this in a way that makes sense. So we have a global society that has every single type of politics, every single type of living situation. Literally, we have the Andaman Islanders are still living in the Stone Age. There's a protected island in the Andaman Islands where no contact is allowed, and they are literally living a Stone Age existence. There are still some uncontacted tribes in the South American jungles. There are still areas. I keep going back to Canada. Look how fucking huge Canada is. There is still speculation. We should cover Bigfoot one day. Well, we should cover Bigfoot soon. There is speculation that Bigfoot is actually a humanoid race, just like Neanderthals and all the other races that used to exist. They are a remnant race of a cousin of Homo sapien, still living in the area. And because Canada can't, our 95% of our population is along the southern border. The rest of Canada is like barren. Same thing with Russia. 90% of their population lives along their western coast. The rest of Russia is pretty barren. Mongolia is a very there are legends and rumors of other humanoid species living in the area, and they just hide. They don't want nothing to do with us, so we don't see them. And they're just uncontacted. They are not classed as human. They are not Homo sapien. They might, could be anything else. So yeah, I think it's absolutely asinine for us to go, oh, we're the best that there is. We're the only thing that there is, when we've got such a huge array, a huge range of every type of human existence possible. We have every range of that currently on our planet. And when you look at the actual number of people who are living an enlightened, advanced existence, it's actually relatively small. So you take island nations that are separated from each other. So you throw a bunch of Atlanteans on an island, limited resources, limited space, get along or forget it, right? Give them $50,000 years to mature and do their thing and grow up and grow up and grow up. Of course, there's absolutely, they should be more advanced than us. And then you can do it 3 or 4 times around the world. Because just imagine, we already have our issues with navigating the world as it exists today, geographically as it exists today. Now throw a bunch of glaciers in the way. Throw continent-sized ice sheets between you and your nearest neighbor. Yeah, you're gonna evolve similarly because you're all the same species. There's gonna be some communication, but the ability to interfere with each other, the ability to fuck with each other gets very, very limited. So do I think every single person, do I think we had this global nirvana? I don't think we did. I think that what we had was pockets of that. I think Atlantis was one of those pockets. I think Lemuria and Mu, whatever they were, wherever they were, I think they were the same thing. I think that a lot of societies, and we know this for a fact, we know that when a more advanced society comes in and says hello to the less advanced neighbors, the less advanced neighbors get fucked over. Give us 50,000 years of evolution, and we're probably going to go, let's just leave the neighbors alone. If every time we help, we just end up making it worse for them, and we'll stay the fuck out of it. I'm not sure if limited resources is exactly what I'm trying to say. You put a bunch of people in a small town and don't give them a lot of opportunities to get out and get away from it. So like I said, you throw Atlantis in the middle of the Atlantic. Atlantis is in the middle of the Atlantic. Everything, there's glaciers everywhere. So it's more about the limited space. It's like you either learn to get along or you're just not going to survive. You take a bunch of people in a small town. Say you take a bunch of people in a small town. This would have made more sense when you're talking early 60s and 70s and before that. Put a bunch of people in a small town without a lot of incentive to leave for the big city and do new things and try new places and yada yada yada. You learn to get along. You learn to get along, or you're just not going to fucking make it, right? So you take a society on an island. We get conflict because that is our current human condition. But if the options are cooperate or die, you give up the conflict really fast. And I do think that if you have a society that has a chance to survive for 50,000, no society is going to survive. No society is going to survive as a society. And of course, Edgar Cayce said that Atlantis existed for 100,000 years. That Atlantis was 100,000 years ago and then built up, and then 50,000 years ago reached their height, maintained, and then had a catastrophe. And from there, the conflict started as they were trying to rebuild. And then that led to worse stuff. And now Atlantis is no more. You cannot have a situation. You are either going to have intense conflict that never ends until mutual annihilation is assured, or you're going to get over your shit and learn to get along. Like I said, if you think of a small town, where there's not a lot of reason or incentive for people to leave the town. Then or like a small town like on an island, then what you're gonna be more incentivized to get along because you're not going to get away with anything. And everybody, you're not going to get away with bullying your neighbor because everybody knows your neighbor and they know you. They're going to pick sides. It's going to be a problem. And so you're going to learn the fine art of cooperation. And when you look at island societies, when you look at Pacific Islanders and whatnot, most of them, even though they may have had tribal conflicts outside, internally, they were usually quite peaceful with each other. Did I say that right? Hi, Kendra. Now, or you look at like high school or something like that, right? And you're gonna have your bullshit that happens. Maybe high school is a really bad comparative, because I think that we have kind of like re-evolved ourselves. I think after the sinking of Atlantis, then you've going through this period of massive struggle where the survivors are trying to survive. And then they go into places like Egypt and stuff like that, where the neighbors aren't necessarily happy to have competition in the area. But I do think that Atlantis, if Atlantis lasted for as long as Edgar Cayce says that it did, then it makes absolute sense that they would come to terms with their own shit and become more peaceful among themselves, and probably have less interest in their neighbors because it just causes problems. So unless you want to, trade with the neighbors, sure. But I don't think they had, I think that because again, our current modern society, we have every form of existence that there is. We have peaceful, non-peaceful, we have advanced, we have primitive, we have it all. And I don't think it would have been any different then. Not when you've got even worse conditions to deal with just to get to the neighbors. So I do think that's a thing. But no, I think Atlantis, I think there's no reason why Atlantis couldn't have been a real place. There's no reason to say it didn't exist. There's no reason to say that it didn't exist, and there's no scientific reason to say that it couldn't exist. The entire mid-Atlantic area has got evidence of stuff that used to be above ground. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I can look this up right quick or not. Ooh, okay, wait a second. Oh, it's a ridge. Okay, Mid-Atlantic Ridge. I'm sorry. I thought the Mid-Atlantic was a trench. Is that the one I want? Well, this is interesting. Is that one showing up okay? That is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and that's what it would have looked like above water. The Bimini Road, yeah, Bimini. The Bimini Road, you cannot get anybody to admit that it's man-made. Not yet, anyway. Nobody wants to say that it's man-made. This is kind of what I was describing. See, when you go down off the coast of South America, it's all that's what the Atlantic would have looked like at its lowest, with a long chain of mountains going down the center, with the Bahamas pretty much filled in, with I wish I had a better map of that, but so coming out of the Gibraltar, you've got, but yeah, a whole bunch of stuff above ground, above water. Island chains with island chains going north to south with one large island at each end. And if you add a glacier in there, that brings your if you add a glacier in there that covers almost all of goes from Canada to Europe, and goes from South America to the south coast of Africa, you've got a pretty significant landmass. And all it takes is all that water to melt. That entire landmass goes underwater. But that is its own thing. Okay, so yeah, Cayce would repeatedly say that even the Lord of Lords, don't forget, for all of his psychic stuff, he was a very devout Christian. Say that even that the Lord, the funny thing is, he was a very devout Christian, but in his seances, he did talk about a higher power, but he did not talk about it as the biblical, he did not reference anything spiritual or divine. He did not reference it the same way the Bible would have referenced it, which was really interesting. And I definitely want, now I want to go up and buy a couple of the books on him to see if I can get, yeah, he used as a reference the biblical account when Jesus was asked when he would return, and he replied, "No one knows." He would basically say that even the Lord of Lords could not accurately predict future events because human free will can alter and change the future, which is also a different, really interesting thing, because he was very, very convinced that human desire and free will could literally alter geographic events, all sorts of shit. And that's the power of, like, the combined power of our psyche. Ooh. Is that going to take me somewhere interesting? Nope. It's going to take me to the library, to the... Yeah, this is just a link that person provided in their little thing. Okay. Oh, you guys can't see that. You guys are still looking at the map. So anyway, do I think Atlantis was real? I think that I do think that there are sunken land masses, lots of them. I think that we are not. I think that our science is way behind the curve on that, because I think there's a lot of there's hubris, arrogance. I think there's a lot of that going on. I think there's a lot of I'm a scientist, therefore what I say is right, and they don't want to be challenged or questioned on it, and they definitely don't want to find nobody. We have this arrogance, we have this ego that nothing could possibly be more advanced than us. This is why this is the main drive. This is my opinion. The main driver. This is the main reason why, for ever and ever, you could not get any reputable scientists to admit that UFOs could be real. You're not going to be able to get any of them to admit that previous civilizations could be more advanced than us. So I think that previous civilizations being just as advanced or more advanced than us are very, very likely, Because if that civilization was physically, geographically located on an area that then 100,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago sunk, 10,000 years of sediment on the bottom of the ocean, you are literally, okay, look out your backyard right now. Look at the amount of space that your home sits on, okay? And then look at the size of your yard, okay? Now imagine 10,000 years have passed, and somebody, this is how they do it. They do core samples. So somebody is taking a tube that big around and drilling into what they hope is a section of your property, and they're guessing, they're digging down a couple of 100 feet of accumulated debris, leaf litter, dead plants, whatever. And they're hoping that this 4-inch pipe is going to penetrate into something that used to belong to you so that they can prove that you existed. It's not going to happen. Edgar Cayce, I want to answer Kaz right quick. Edgar Cayce, he believed in what he did because he was helping people, but he was incredibly conflicted his entire life about it. He knew, as long as he was using this ability to help people, he was okay with it. He would not use it to help people enrich themselves. He would not use it for personal gain or anything like that. He never had to worry about being personally shunned for this because he got very fortunate that way. But what he always worried about was that this was good, that he was worried about whether this came from God. He was super, super religious, super, super Christian. And of course, occult and religious practices like that were considered a little bit offensive. So yeah, he actually struggled a lot with this. But because of the success that he was having, because the primary goal of every single thing that he does is to help people with health problems, this sort of thing. So as long as he always said that if his advice ever started to hurt people, he would stop. And fortunately for the rest of the world, that never happened. And the only people who ever had a problem with his advice were the ones who didn't take it. Everybody who took his advice got the results that he had promised. He did tons of predictions. Usually, sometimes he would do dedicated sessions. Mostly it would come up in the course of other things. But yeah, he was very devout and it was very uncomfortable. But I think our hubris is the problem. No, humanity, look at modern, if we find life on other planets, it's going to be microbial. Why is that? Why would the Earth has existed for about 4 billion years. 4 billion years. The universe is 14 billion years old. So it stands to reason that there are solar systems. And yeah, he was primarily a medical intuitive. That was his goal. That was what he focused most of his energy. Oh, okay. See you later, Adam Rose. I got to go in a couple minutes too. Lisa's going to be heading home from work soon. So the thing is, yeah, that's my dream ability. Yeah. So the thing is, we live on a planet that is we live on a planet that we can provably state is about 4 billion years old on what is actually a mediocre yellow dwarf sun. And we are surrounded by planets. We are surrounded by stars that are 10, 12 billion years old. And we've proven the existence of planets around other suns. So some of those planets could be 8, 10 billion years old, but we think that we are the most exciting thing that's ever happened in the universe, and any life that could possibly live elsewhere could not possibly be advanced as us. And I have the exact same argument every time, and that is ants probably think that ants don't notice us at all unless we're stepping on their anthill. I think that there are life forms that are so far advanced to us that we're like just insects to them. I think, of course, we've got the proof in our own solar system. Not every planet has life. Not every planet that has life is going to have advanced life. We know this. That's not the hubris. The hubris is to go, we're the only ones. Now I'm going to hack up a lung now. So in those periods of hundreds of thousands of years between ice ages, and the last one of which human beings, Homo sapiens, existed, my bigger question is, why didn't we? Why were we incapable of forming societies then and we are now? Nothing changed, apparently. We're still Homo sapiens. So this idea that we're the only things out there, this idea that no advanced civilization could have existed before us is absolutely ludicrous as far as I'm concerned. I think it's absolutely ludicrous. And I think the fact that we are going in and looking at structures like the pyramids, we are looking at structures like the Bimini Road, we are looking at people like Edgar Cayce, who is one of the most accurate psychics to ever exist. And we're not talking, oh, this thing then. We're talking like he's making predictions that are coming true, that are still coming true years and years and years after his death. So we are discounting all of this shit. We're discounting the psychic experience. We are discounting the technological advancement. We are discounting our own evolution just so that we can be the best thing since sliced bread. And the reality is, if we take a look at those pyramids and we go, they were built with superior technology. Then if we look at that seriously, Kendra's Journey says we haven't even traveled very far out yet. We just reached interstellar space like last year with Kepler, I think, and there's definitely life elsewhere. We just have to get there. Absolutely. And it's absolute hubris. These are NASA scientists that are saying, oh yeah, like, I mean, if life exists elsewhere in the universe, it's only going to be microbial at best. It's like, no, that's garbage. That's stupid. Now, obviously, I'll tell you right now, like there's the let's think about global security and not get the people riled up. And it's like, no, let's get the people riled up with the truth so that we are more prepared to accept it when we stumble into it. But anyway, no, we have we know that the Syrians, Babylonians, the Akkadians, we know that they all existed. We know fuck all about them. So for the purposes of our current civilization, we have references coming from India that are about 10,000 years old. And starting about 7,000 years ago, we have those references. Starting about 7,000 years ago is when we start to really see, start to see the proof. He basically, sorry, I'm going to finish the first thought. So starting about 7,000 years ago, we see this proof of development. We see farming. We see all these things that show, okay, we are now advancing as a species, as a society, as a thing. We've done this in 7,000 years. Oh, see you later, Trisha. Yeah, we'll figure out. I'll figure out leave your suggestions for a topic below. We never really gave ourselves a lot of time to talk. I've spent the time babbling about this instead of talking about what next week's topic should be. But if you get a chance, leave a comment below, letting me know what topic you might give me some topic ideas. I'll come up with something if nobody has time to comment, but that's okay too. So anyway, so in 7,000 years, we have gone from hunter-gatherers to developing all this shit. And then in the last 200 years, we went. So it took us 7,000 years. It took us 7,000 years from learning to grow a plant, learning basic farming and animal husbandry. Took us 7,000 years to get from that to the moon. And yet the Homo sapiens that existed in between, the Homo sapiens that existed prior to the last ice age had 100,000 years. And I would have to look it up. Let's say 50 for just to cut the difference. They had 50,000 years, but they were just primitives who couldn't do fuck all. According to researchers, they didn't even have the ability to speak, which I'm sorry about your luck, but sign language is incredibly convenient. I don't know sign language, and I kind of wish that I did, because even without the ability to make a verbal sound, the ability to communicate isn't. Dogs communicate. The ability to communicate and form complicated things without the ability to speak. We've already proven by the deaf people in our population that it's very, very, very possible. So Homo sapiens, regardless of what we may or may not have developed in the last 50, 60,000 years ago, should have developed a very advanced civilization. So the idea of just arbitrarily saying that couldn't have happened is garbage. is absolute garbage. There's no way. There's no way we didn't do it. As a matter of fact, the Egyptians had a very stable long-term civilization. The Egyptian civilization lasted for a couple of thousand years as the Egyptian civilization. Then the Greeks came along. They lasted as a people. Then the Romans. We are actually one of the shortest lived civilizations so far. We are, because we rose from like the remnants of the Roman civilization, so 2,000 years ago. But then we did this thing where we started building our own societies, kingdoms, all this shit, right? And then only now, the Egyptians started off as a coalesced society and then grew from there. We started off as a diverse society and are now coalescing. We're kind of doing it in reverse. But anyway, and that's just hitting and running because they're obviously far more complicated. It's far more complicated. Yeah, we are a drop in the bucket. That's the best way to explain it, because obviously there's more complicated ideas that wrap around all of that. But it doesn't change the fact that, yes, we're there oceanic land masses that were either flooded out or due to geologic changes sunk. Absolutely. We have the proof of it. It's called tectonic plates, tectonic action, right? We know exactly what glaciers do to land masses. So the fact that certain evidence isn't found isn't proof. You are not going to find proof of an advanced civilization anywhere under the Laurentian ice sheet, which is basically Canada. You're not going to find proof of an advanced civilization in that area, because a mile thick sheet of ice is an amazing scouring pad for getting rid of everything. Now, finding evidence, like I said, evidence of dinosaurs that have been buried under 500, 600 feet of sediment because they are been there for millions of years, absolutely, but no. So anything that was developed between the time of Atlantis and their 100,000 year history, anything that they developed, if it happened to be developed in or near where glaciers then showed up, that's going to be gone. The main power center, which is the best way to explain it, like I said, Rome, the power center of Rome. In the comments after the live, if you can, because that's going to be a lot easier for me to find them. Which will be just make it easier all the way around. And then if it's in the comments under the live, people can upvote. People can just use the thumbs up button to, hey, I like that one, thumbs up. I like that one, thumbs up. Yeah, I get bored and go down rabbit holes all the fucking time. So anyway, but yeah, I know I'm kind of repeating and hammering at that thought, but the reality is, like I said, think of your own home, bury it under 1,000 years of sediment, and then come back with a 4-inch pipe, sinking it down, looking for proof that something existed that hasn't already been broken down and disintegrated. It's literally a needle in a haystack. And the fact that we're finding anything, the fact that we are finding the shit that we're finding, we shouldn't be finding. And the reality is that, like, there is evidence of water damage on the Sphinx. The last time that area of Egypt was wet was 13,000 years ago. But our scientists, in spite of the water damage, are telling us that the Sphinx was only built like 4,000 years ago. According to Edgar Cayce, it was built by the Atlanteans after they came to Egypt to rebuild. And the same thing about other areas was they came from Atlantis into these areas to rebuild their society after their society was destroyed in a great cataclysm. And the funny thing is that the mythology of these areas back it up. The gods came to Earth they came down to Earth from the sky to build a society, to build a civilization. And yes, humans were not their peer. Well, the local population were not their peers; they were their servants. Now, according to some mythologies, they were not human. According to others, they were humans but very powerful. It depends on who you're talking to. Like the gods of Olympus were for the most part human. They were just really, really powerful. Yeah, Stargate keeps coming to mind. I have a really interesting theory on science fiction. I have this interesting theory how if you're a science fiction nut like I am, after a while you start seeing these similarities, right? And if you take the similarities in that, I don't know how to explain this properly. I'll try right quick. My door could be opening any minute with Lisa getting home. So the ancient, yeah. So yeah, the ancient aliens and stuff like that it's really, really interesting. But thing is, what's really interesting to me, it's called a racial memory, core memory. Like like why do babies, why does a baby know how to suckle? Why do certain animals, like, okay, certain types of fish, they just lay their eggs and leave? How do the babies know how do the babies of certain species know how to, yeah, how do the babies of a certain species know what to do to attract a mate when that particular type of animal is just simply, okay, you hatched, bye, this sort of thing. So racial memory, core memory, that sort of thing. And there's been some theories before that a lot of the stuff that we experience when we're looking at stories and science fiction and stuff like that, yeah, instinctive. When you start looking at the similarities of stuff like that, it kind of makes you wonder, are these people creative? Do these people have creative imaginations? Or are their creative imaginations being inspired by some degree of access to primitive core memories? That's an interesting thought. Like a salmon. How does a salmon know to go back to the same stream? Hi, Andy and Arcadia. Your timing is horrible. I'm just getting ready to go. Lisa's going to be home any minute now, so I got to find out what she wants to do with her day. But that's okay. But yeah, so that's an interesting thought to leave you guys with, because when you start looking at, like, we start talking about stargates and stuff like that, why is it that as a science fiction trope, oh, a stargate, oh yeah, that makes sense. Why does it make sense? It shouldn't. It should be so, how can somebody else, does this make sense? There is this concept of core memories that we just simply don't access because we don't know how, whatever, right? And most people of a psychic nature are like, we just don't know how. It's there, we just don't know how to access it, but we find it influencing us in unusual ways. So somebody whose skill, oh, that's okay, it's good to see you too. So somebody whose skill is in storytelling is more skilled at subconsciously, they're not aware. Maybe some people are aware that they're doing it. That would be really freaky, right? Some guy on his deathbed goes, "Oh, by the way, I was actively accessing core memories, and you'll find that all of my science fiction is correct and accurate to what our experiences were 100,000 years ago." That would be fucking cool. But anyway, collective unconscious, yes, a collective unconscious that anybody can access if they just know how. So primal memories, primal this, primal that. And there is a theory that nobody is writing new stories. What they are accessing, what they are doing is making a story out of information that we just don't remember, which makes sense. Science fiction will be the basis for our future mythology, aka religion. It already is. It really, really is. Yeah, they did studies on that during 9/11. Here's the thing. This is already what's happening now, because when you have this profound thought or a profound idea, what do you call it? If you are a person who lives in a, what is it? It's a secular society if it's a religious society, and non-secular if it's not religious, whichever. You are raised to be religious. You believe in the Bible or the Torah or the Talmud or whatever, or you believe in these things. You believe in the teachings of Buddha. You believe these things. And then you have this experience. You have a dream about something that happened 20,000 years ago while Atlantis was still ruling the world, and your experience as an Atlantean, dealing with an Atlantean, you dream about this. You wake up, what have you had? You have had a religious epiphany. Period. Yeah, science fiction will be the basis for our future mythology, aka religion. It's evolving too quickly. It will take time to coalesce. But we build religions around less. And we have. And this is we as a species have built entire religions around less. We built Jesus was a Jew. We built the entire Christian religion around the life experiences of one man who said he was speaking for God. An entire religion. The same thing. And it's not my job to say who's right or wrong, because I do not want to offend any one person's religious beliefs. But when you look at it like that, there's a certain element of wondering where it came from, how it came from, and why so many people resonated with it. So science fiction is kind of the new religion, and these epiphanies and whatnot that we have. But yeah, a Stargate, well, that makes sense. Transporter technology, that makes sense. Transporter technology, they're actually studying it now. Once they discovered string theory and quantum entanglement, then they started studying transportation. They've made significant discoveries of instantaneous travel. All this shit based on science fiction. Science fiction, Little Red Men. Science fiction brought us UFO encounters brought us the word flying saucer, but science fiction brought us sentient robots. What are we working on now? AI. We're working on AI right now. There's people working on AI right now. There's people working on humanoid robots right now. It's only a matter of time, and it started as science fiction. Sooner or later, if there's not already a quasi-religious, well, there is. It's called Scientology. There's already a quasi-religious cult built around this whole concept. But anyway, I digress. This is about Atlantis. Do I think now the physical location of Atlantis? I believe that land masses, blah 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 blah. Absolutely, that we are absolutely stupid to believe that did not happen as the Earth grew and moved and changed. We started off with a single continent, Pangea, that now evolved into this. Of course, we've had land masses that have come up and gone down. What does that make Gene Roddenberry? Gene Roddenberry never founded a religion. He never turned it into a religion. But yeah, Gene Roddenberry can literally be somebody who accessed, and look at some of the shit that he thought of. Look at some of the shit that Gene Roddenberry thought of while developing Star Trek. Humanoid aliens. Spock, the Vulcan mind meld. Human societies that were more advanced than us, that were less advanced than us. Human societies that were more advanced than us. That's not really a topic that anybody gets into in science fiction. At least it wasn't back then. No, back then it was odd. It was odd to say this science. It was odd back then. The War of the Worlds. Oh, well, they were just little green slimy aliens. They looked kind of like sentient octopuses. They didn't get here because they were better than us. They just happened to discover something that we hadn't found yet. Big fucking difference. And they were so fragile and weak and worthless that a common cold killed them all. That's the premise behind War of the Worlds. They started picking up our diseases, right? Gene Roddenberry is like, hey, let's do an episode where these guys are so far. So they did the one episode where they're swinging in, they're trying to help. A Stargate had an episode like this as well. We're going to swing in and try and help you guys because this shit's happening and we don't want you guys to get hurt. And the guys are going, no, it's okay. I think we'll be there. They're super peaceful, super kind, super this, super that. It's like, no, it's okay. You don't understand. We'll be fine. It's okay. You know, we're not really happy that you're interfering. This kind of thing. This is what's happening, right? Oh yeah. Wait, tribbles. Are you talking about tribbles? Yeah. Okay. So then the end of the episode turns around and it was like the people that they're trying to help is like, we never needed your help. We were just, we just didn't know how to make you guys go away and let us take care of ourselves because we're so advanced that you guys look like infants. Well, Stargate was about Stargate, the basic concept behind Stargate. Yeah, Star Trek is our utopian future. Yeah. And like Stargate, we found this technology. Now we're using this technology. Now we're desperately trying to catch up. That's what that was one of the core premises behind Stargate. They're more advanced than us. We've got the will to fight, but we don't have the machinery to do it with. We do not have the weapons. So every now and again, yeah, Trouble with Tribbles. I love that one. That one was awesome. So anyway, what's really, really interesting, only in the realm of fantasy can we explore, without being criticized into oblivion, can we explore the idea of someone or something out there being better than us. And even then, that's kind of, sort of 20, 30 years, but it's kind of, sort of still new. Some of the first sci-fi stuff was coming out in the 50s. Well, the science fiction stuff that was coming out in the 50s, the humans always won. We always figured it out. We always bested them, right? Because like I said, they weren't better than we were better than them. They just happened to have technology we didn't have, and we never questioned that. Oh, they were warlike, they were aggressive, they were this, we were defending ourselves, so we just destroyed them all and took everything. It's like, yeah. But what's really interesting is what is really, really interesting is that, for starters, people are, if something entertains, then obviously people are going to stick. Oh, I'm still talking. My God, my wife is going to come in and go, "What the fuck you doing?" I don't care. So I'm going to she's going to be here any minute now. Let's just say hi to her when she gets here. So I can remove that one. There we go. Wow, look at that. Look how fuzzy I am. I'm fine in the small. I'm fine. Okay, so I guess I am going to leave something up so I'm not super, super fuzzy. But yeah. Yeah, something down the mid-Atlantic ridge? Absolutely. There's absolutely no reason why there wouldn't have been. Especially, and I thought it was a trench. That was me getting, okay, a trench goes down, ridge goes up. So that means that the plates are moving this way, I guess, or have been. That's okay. I get shit mixed up all the time, and I do it on camera. I don't care. But anyway. No, I think science fiction as a genre is really, really interesting. And I think that I think what's really interesting is some of the shit, because don't forget, a lot of these guys, when you're writing science, okay, what you want is you want your audience to suspend their disbelief. Now, this is really important. If you're writing a story, I used to fiddle around with writing here. I still fiddle around with writing once in a while. I've just never been paid for it like the wife, but that's okay. She's, oh my gosh, she's like going, she's starting to gear up for stuff. She was just talking today about fulfillment centers and stuff like that. I just lost my trick. No, you're still a Trekkie. It's fine. There is so much Star Trek stuff out, Star Trek, Star Wars. So the trick to writing is to get your audience to suspend their disbelief. So when you're writing for an audience that doesn't want to believe in little green men, how do you get them to suspend their disbelief? Well, then they have to be green and slimy and easily defeated, blah, 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 blah. They're only advanced because blah. So that sort of thing. But then a lot of science fiction writers, they want the technology. You don't just suspend disbelief on the storyline. You have to suspend your disbelief on the technology. And the funny thing is that the more they provide the technology, oh, this is how this works. Oh, this is how this works. The more they provide the technology, going back and looking at some of the old sci-fi type stuff, Buck Rogers in the 25th century, Star Trek, Star Wars, going back and looking at some of that stuff, and you look at it and go, this made up story about how this thing works is surprisingly fucking accurate. Because if I'm going to explain how a car works, because I know nothing about cars, I do know enough to know, well, you put the gas in the engine because then the motor, it uses the engine to produce a combustion that as the engine works, as the engine operates, it causes pressure to go into cylinders that then cause the shaft to move, which then cause the tires to roll. Makes sense, right? Now, go and ask your 4-year-old, how does a car work? They're going to go, you turn the key and the wheels go. They're not going to understand, right? These science fiction writers are providing details that make no sense. I'm still live.
You are?
Whoops, say it again.
You're still live?
So are you now.
Hi, everybody.
Lisa says hi. Apparently, I have to go. Are you coming?
Are we going to dinner?
Are we going right away? I'm going to need a couple of minutes anyway.
Okay.
And we need to walk the dog. So you might as well come up and drop your stuff off.
It sounds good. See you
Okay.
home.
I love you. See you in a few minutes.
Love you too. Bye.
Say love you to the internet.
Love you, Internet.
There. Okay. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Told you. She's not mad at me though. So I know why she's not mad at me. I'm paying for dinner apparently. But that's okay. So I got to get going. So the wife, I got to walk. Now that the phone. I see you. Hi. What you doing? Oh, that's not there. Come here. Ugh. What you doing? The phone rang. Look how fuzzy that is. My God, I got to figure out this camera. Didn't matter before. I wonder if the camera itself is just something. Some of Bruno's better than none of Bruno, so that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to get going. I'm going to say goodbye to you all. But I am going to leave you with that thought. Think about some of your favorite science fiction stuff and think about how common sense, rational, and reasonable some of the descriptions for some of this technology sounds, and ask yourself, why does it sound so rational and reasonable if you're not tapping into something that makes sense? But anyway, don't forget. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I have more computing power in my cell phone than my first Pentium 1 computer with a 4.3 gigabyte hard drive. Nostradamus would be really interesting. Nostradamus, I find him interesting and frustrating all at the same time. But swing back. I'm gonna stop. I think you can leave comments right away. But yeah, give me some suggestions and ideas on what to do for next week. If you spot a suggestion, upvote it. That way I can get it. It helps me keep track better. So if you're too shy to leave a comment, but you spot a suggestion that you like, upvoting it lets me know. Anyway, I'm gonna figure out my fucking camera later, and I will see you guys on the next one. And of course, I'll also. This week I didn't end up doing any sewing lives, but like I said, little things kept happening at the wrong times. So maybe next. Well, I got to figure out what to do with this fabric. So leave me suggestions on that too. Well, I'm going to do a community post. Anyway, I better get going because she's going to want her dinner and I'm going to want to make sure that we both get fed. So I will see you guys later. Have a great weekend and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.